Hello everyone and welcome to Wowhead Weekly number 266. This week, a lot of things have happened. 9.1 PTR finally went up, which means that there's been data mining streams and lots of data mining in general with tons and tons of updates. We have new models, transmogs, we have the new raid, we have lots of things to do with the lore, we have even Pepe updates. We have lots and lots of things to go through. Yeah, let's try and get started as soon as possible. Let me quickly first introduce myself. I am Annie, or also known as Annie Fuchsia, and most of the time you can catch me streaming World of Warcraft on Twitch. My co-host is the lovely Perculia, and I'll let her introduce herself properly here.
Hi everyone, I'm Perk. I run Wowhead. We've had lots of cool stuff going on with 9.1. So I oversee all the news and guides and features you see on the site. And it's really cool to do this show and not be behind the scenes once a week to highlight it all with you. Sometimes you have a cat, you are seeing his tail, and he provides comedic relief as well. So yeah, we have a pretty big show because we have all the models and all the initial data mining and speculation stuff from the very first show. So it should be a pretty fun one. I'm going to try to pick up my cat
Nice one,
as
Brad
maybe.
Paul.
Oh, I can't. he's behind the computer now. So if a wire is suddenly pulled out, it's because he's at work.
Yep.
But yeah, so we'll probably highlight some of the flying and raid stuff at the start of the show, and then move on to the most interesting models. Then highlight some of the interesting, like, big picture lore implications. Got some things with Dreadlords, and close with some general reminders about Daisy and some new things that you can purchase from the gear store.
Indeed.
So
And throughout the show, there will be some things that are considered spoiler. For that, we will make sure to have our sign up. That on that side. So if you don't want any spoilers, you can look out for that and mute us or pause us. Probably mute us is best until it's gone, so that you don't accidentally get spoiled for things.
yeah,
But yeah, 9.1 PTR is indeed here, and we got a last confirmation update on how to unlock flying. I know a lot of people are looking forward to this. So it seems like to unlock flying, all you have to do is continue the campaign and simply unlock this new hub in Korthia, and then you are pretty much done.
yeah, so that was pretty exciting news because at BlizzCon Blizzard made it seem like you had to just finish the campaign to unlock flying, and the initial data mining would mean that finishing the campaign was at Renown 59, and people were doing the math and thinking that was like 7 weeks in. But with the item and then the confirmation on Twitter from a Blizzard dev, flying you just get when you unlock the hub in Korthia, which is really early on in the campaign, and I think that's been very positively received. It's a big departure from the past expansions where you had to do like rep stuff and play through a whole quest line and do lots of things. So I think people are just really happy that they just need to unlock the main hub and then they get flying.
Yeah, it sounds like it's something we'll do, in pretty much the first week, and I think that's awesome. Also, to keep in mind though, the flying will not be everywhere, so there are
Mm.
certain limitations, so mostly due to technical ones. But we will not be able to fly in Oribos or in the connecting areas towards the different zones. So you cannot, for example, fly from Ardenweald to Maltraxus. They might look close to each other, but from a technical perspective, if you would actually sit there and try to fly to where the other one is, it would apparently take 30 minutes because they're very far away apart. They just look closer in the map that we have. So due to that, there's going to be, I'm assuming, invisible walls of sorts, so you can't fly
Yeah.
across them or like between them, but you can still fly all around within each zone in itself.
Yeah, also you can't fly in the Maw as well as Korthia, but you are getting that upgrade to where you can use ground mounts in the Maw. So I think that this is overall a positive change, and hopefully it seems promising for Blizzard reacting to feedback, because it wasn't just a change from what they said earlier in the year. Like this was a change from what they even said at BlizzConline. How maybe they've realized that 9.1 it has been a while since launch, and that if it's taking longer than they thought, then maybe flying should be slightly earlier.
You know,
So it just seems positive overall.
that's a really good point. It could have been the case that they were planning to make it take a bit longer, using some kind of continuous quest line of some sort, maybe more chapters in a campaign or something. But maybe considering the delay and how people are kind of, tired of the patch lasting for so long, and that they feel like we've walked enough. We've been on the ground enough time to now be in the air finally and make things feel a lot smoother, at least within the zones. So that might actually be part of the reason why it's so fast when 9.1 hits.
Yeah, and I think it's just really good to have it be something very simple and straightforward. Following the feedback that it felt kind of needlessly gated,
Yeah.
and people have really explored the Shadowland zones on
Mm-hmm.
foot for a very long time.
Yep.
So I think it's definitely long overdue. And don't forget, there are the Covenant mounts associated with flying. So those are like a fun little side perk as well.
Indeed. Indeed, indeed. And with that, let's jump into the Sanctum of Domination, the new raid
Yeah.
that we can be expecting in this patch. So there's.
So yeah.
You go ahead.
You go ahead. Yeah, I was gonna say, like, just to recap, we didn't hear a lot about it at BlizzConline, besides the fact there were 10 bosses and Sylvanas was at the end, but they didn't really show us any pictures of it. We didn't usually there's like a little preview. And we're getting a fuller picture of it. They had raid testing the very first week, which was pretty unusual to have it so soon when a PTR opens, but I guess they're making up for lost time. And the Sanctum of Domination is pretty much what it sounds like. It's like Torghast 2.0, very Ice Crown Citadel, gray, dark blue, very gloomy. It's basically in Torghast. It's the jailer's, main location. Sylvanas is the final boss. There are, remnant of Ner'zhul along the way, some characters from the past. And so far, the raid seems to have some interesting flavor moments. Like the first boss, you pick up anima powers along the way, and then you use it against the boss, but the anima powers can damage the people around you. So it's like an interesting trolling opportunity.
Mm-hmm.
um,
I do
but
not
yeah,
look forward
so
to that
yeah,
when playing with viewers on stream.
yeah.
Mm-mm.
I guess a little bit. It's it can look funny, but at least it's only the first boss, so
Mm-hmm.
it's like a whatever boss. But yeah, just before we highlight some of the interesting loot and Sylvana stuff, we just wanted to highlight a few more of the kind of fun things like that fight. And one was that Buttons has an achievement.
Yeah.
So Buttons is always getting lost in Torghast, and
Buttons, the
now we find him
brass.
again.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
For people who may not know the reference, I have the clip to show you guys. It's basically one of the little mini quests that you can have in Torghast. So in this case, let me show it to you. Actually, it became popular after, I don't know. I guess people just found it sounding funny, or cute maybe, and it's something that you kept seeing as you did more Torghast, so it kind of just stuck with people. And now they are back in the raid itself, and also give you an achievement if you do it before killing the first boss, I think, if I remember correctly. But yeah, let's quickly play it to remind you what it is.
Buttons! Morez.
Yeah, and that was pretty much it.
Yeah. So it's nice when there's little things like that for an achievement. And
Mm-hmm.
another funny reference is Thermaplugg, who was, the villain of the gnomes storyline. Uh, he was defeated in past expansions, and his fate in the afterlife is that he has been turned into a moss-worn battle pet.
Yep.
And that's just funny how, like, imagine spending your afterlife in hell as a battle pet because he's a gnome.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
For other people to play with you.
so yeah, the description of it was funny as well. Let me pull it up. It wasn't apparent from the name at first, but it was like a ruthless tormentor of the smallest souls. Some say
Smallest
he
souls.
was known in life as Thermaplugg.
Mm-hmm.
Pride Paw. I don't know if you heard that on the stream, but he
Sound
just
like a
meowed.
bump. Oh, okay.
Yes. um, but
Yeah.
yeah, and also, I mean, from what we've been learning, it seems that you don't really get sent to the mall right away. So he obviously got sent to Revendreth and didn't pass his trials, and then ended up in the mall.
Mm-hmm.
Right, Paw, no, my water. Okay, he didn't knock
Did
it
he?
down.
Okay.
Oh,
I was like, oh
oh
god.
wait, my lighting setup. Right, Paw. 1 second.
Yeah, I can see that it suddenly got bright. What's his pet abilities? A very good question. Unfortunately, it does not look like he's got any type of unique abilities. It looks like a kind of typical humanoid build. So maybe there's not much to expect on that side of things in terms of the playability. But still a pretty cool pet, you know? You can make fun of the little gnome being stuck here as a little battle pet now. Welcome back.
Okay. I was gonna pick him up, but he wrapped his entire body around a chair.
No. But yeah, I
But on
was
the way over,
mentioning.
he knocked like a lighting filter over, and then it was
Oh,
very bright.
makes sense how it got brighter then. Um, yeah, I was mentioning that the battle pet does not currently seem to have any unique abilities.
Yeah, it just looks cool.
Yeah.
But yeah. So
Mm-hmm.
those are some interesting flavor things before we move into the serious stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And the serious thing was that Blizzard teased in a few places that they wanted to make something that would have raid gear be best for raiding, and they didn't go just into specifics, but then we keep data mining these interesting kind of like Shaw Touch gems, but the Torghast version.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a very interesting system. There's been no blue posts on this, but everything with data mined makes it seem like this is the system. So basically, there are special gems called Shard of Domination gems,
Mm-hmm.
and there's a um, raid specific cloak that has a special socket for the gems. And you put the gem in the raid cloak after you kill some bosses to empower it, and there are different ranks of the shards, so they get stronger over time. So
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the system does not seem totally complete yet. The gems seem to be for roles that are like what are the three roles again? Oh yeah, there's a chaotic tank and healer, so DPS tank healer. um no word on Blizzard yet. There are some gems that have 1 rank, some that have 5. But it seems to be a hybrid of like the essence system where the higher ranks do more stuff, and then the mop shot touch weapon system where some things from the raid let you socket gems that do
Mm-hmm.
interesting things.
Mm-hmm.
So I
Yes.
mean, we'll have to see this play out, but I guess my two questions are: what happens if you have like a legendary cloak? Like, you have to choose. Like, is no one wants to use the legendary cloak if you have this
Very
thing
valid
instead?
concern. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And the other thing was, I think I think I'm okay with them reusing the Shaw touched concept, because we've gone off in the past how like Blizzard like they add a lot of new systems, and then they have to spend time in the expansion like fixing the borrowed power system and tweaking it to make it better. So I think that if they can take something that worked in the past and just sort of give it a new flavor and slot it in a few years later, I think that's probably a better use of resources And it also kind of gives me similar vibes to what they were saying about the corruption system in 8.3. Not that it's like corruption, but that they wanted to experiment with like effects or items that the little like the mini system would be around for only a patch. So it seems like this is something that's just for Sanctum of Domination with the like sad sounding Torghast effects, and that's it just for 9.1. So I think it's okay. I just don't want them to go crazy making like a full blown essence system and then we lose a patch or something as a result of
Mm-hmm.
no resource.
No, I think you're absolutely right. And I think also you mentioning the building systems on top of systems, how sometimes issues occur because you didn't think through it properly. And if it is the case that these are cloaks, then I think that's definitely part of the issue here because people might have their best items where the cloak socket is. So
Mm-hmm.
why did we make this specific to cloaks? Maybe this should have
Right.
instead been a trinket or something that doesn't affect the previous thing because that was another issue, or not an issue, but somewhat of an oversight where we got the legendary cloak very later in the expansion in BFA, which felt awkward because there were some cloaks in the game already, and
Mm-hmm.
like in Mythic Plus and things like that. So then it kind of felt like you had to change the game because you decided to add this other thing later on, because suddenly the raid, not the raid, the loot system in Mythic Plus had to change,
Right.
to fit this new system, so it felt very off. um Another concern that I have is these effects seem to sound very general. So, for example, you have a
Mm-hmm.
thing like your critical hits deal an additional 215 shadow damage over 10 seconds, stacking up to 3 times. Or the tank one, taking magic damage heals you for 190. Obviously, the numbers, may not be
Right.
accurate or anything. And another one, healing an ally below 30% health increases your primary stat, etc. My concern with this is how are you then not going to force people who do Mythic Plus or PvP to feel like they have to raid? Because I thought that the idea was that you're going to make the best the best gear for raid to come from raid, right? That makes sense. That's good.
Yeah.
But if you make it so that these special sockets can only come from the raid, how about the effects also not being so general? Because it sounds like they could be best in slot for all other places of the game as well. Then, so I think that that's a small concern so far, especially for PvPers, because I know a lot of people were upset that the PvP system was too strong right now, so PvEers had to do PvP. But we have to remember that we still don't want it to be the opposite way as well. It's okay to have some crossover, of course, but to have the items from one source being much better than the other in multiple ways, then that might not be as good. Um, we will touch on the
So
PvP system as
yeah.
well very
Yeah.
soon, as
So
there's changes coming there too.
yeah, so to highlight the shards, it's interesting because there's two versions, so I think it would have been good if Blizzard made a post on this like they did for PvP. And the ones you read, like they're the simple ones, but then there's other shards that are like, Unbound Pestilence rank 5. Your helpful abilities send a swarm of locusts to protect target ally, absorbing 50% of damage they take within 10 seconds. Chains up to 3 additional allies can occur once per 30 seconds and has a 25% chance to cast twice. Swarm of locusts casts automatically on a nearby ally. When your ally is healed, it attacks a nearby enemy instead. So, like, that sounds really complex.
Yeah.
Uh, so it's like, are we getting the simple version or are we getting like the mega amped up version?
Yeah, and is this
So
is
yeah.
this effect like disabled in other parts of the game, or am I gonna have a swarm of locusts every 60 seconds on all my allies in my PvP team as well?
Right. So the only thing we've seen so far is a quest that has a pretty fun name. It's called Reap What You Sow. And it seems like your cloak is a normal cloak, and then you have to kill bosses to empower the cloak, and then it unlocks effects. So I don't know if Blizzard is thinking that like you kill like you clear the raid once and then you get like rank 1, and or you clear the raid 5 times and you get rank 2 type of thing. But it seems like this stuff should be limited 2 rating, or else we're gonna have like corruption and Rextroy, 2.0 and 8.3, where it's like, oh,
Mm-hmm.
stack infinite stars and then you win.
Yep.
Uh,
One
so
shot in the arena. GG.
yeah, one thing that I did notice, I sort of understand why Blizzard maybe didn't do it. They didn't do their little video preview for the patch. You could argue that BlizzConline maybe was the preview instead, but I think it would be good if they had prepped some media around it to explain some of these mysterious systems that were not discussed at BlizzConline, because they made that a big deal at BlizzConline. They weren't going into systems, so I think it would have been good if they did a systems focused Q&A or a
Definitely.
video
Mm-hmm.
blog, talking about the stuff they felt was not ready then.
Mm-hmm.
Because we data mined some stuff on Friday, and then we data mined the effects on Friday, and then we did another round of data mining on Sunday where we found the cloak items, and it's like, oh well, now we know you put these gems in a cloak, like that changes everything. Now there's legendary concerns, and we found like the simple versions of stuff. So
Mm-hmm.
I think that for something really big like raid gear designed to be good for raiders, that it would have been nice to have a blue post explaining the full thing.
Yeah, no, I absolutely agree. I think also system changes is something that's interesting for anyone who plays the game at every level and every different part of the game as well. Like, I think it's interesting for all PvPers, all raiders, or Mythic
Mm-hmm.
Plusers. It's interesting for everyone to know what's going on. So I definitely think some kind of Q&A would have been really, really fitting, or a short video that just talks about how the system is supposed to work. My worry is that the reason why there isn't such a thing is because it's still not final.
Right, but like it would have been nice. I mean, maybe Blizzard is like reverting back to their whole like it has to be polished before we talk about it deal. But I like the alpha streams where they would try to comment on things that weren't finished. Like they had that Torghast one where it first came out, or like some of the models with data mining. So it would have been cool to be like, week one, here's what we're seeing. Are we seeing the full picture? Like, is it just on cloaks? Is it more? Do we get the boring procs or the empowered proc?
Mm-hmm.
It would have been nice to do that, but I mean,
Mm-hmm.
they must feel really busy if 9.1 is clearly later than 8.1 and 7.1. So maybe
Mm-hmm.
it's a resource issue. You don't know.
Yeah.
Um,
Hopefully, we will get an update on that soon, though, as we all
yeah,
know what happens when system things are addressed too late.
yeah. I do want to highlight though that they clarified the flying unlock
They
and how
did really
PvP
fast.
gear worked. Like, yeah, they did a really good job getting the PvP blue post and responding to Wowhead on Twitter really well. So, um, obviously the person doing flying is not the person doing the raid gear, but I do think give Blizzard credit where it's due. They did clear those things up pretty quickly.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so I think we want to put up a spoiler tag for this next part because we're going to be discussing Sylvanas. We'll take it off when we discuss the loot like her mount, but we wanted to talk about the fight, and there was some hints beyond what you could read in the dungeon journal I wanted to highlight.
Yep. So, spoiler tag up as we discuss Sylvanas in 9.1.
Yeah, so like we mentioned, we data mined the interior of Torghast, the models, and you got a taste of it. And yeah, it looks very Torghasty, lots of spikes. But we were able to data mine the architecture for the end of the at the very end of the raid.
Oh,
And
nice.
it's really interesting when you line it up with the description of the Sylvanas fight, because we have some pictures of the very top of Torghast, which lines up with the first Sylvanas phase called A Cycle of Hatred. We have forgotten what makes us strong. Players battle against Sylvanas atop Torghast while the jailer remains elusive. And then we move beyond the top of Torghast in the data mining to the Arbiter's Chamber in Oribos, like the thing you see when you choose your covenant, which is super interesting, as the final phase of Sylvanas is the freedom of choice. Nothing can stop what is to come. Sylvanas follows the player's traversal, greeting them for the final showdown between death and inevitability in the jailer's master plan.
Mm-hmm.
So, to me, that sounds like we're chasing Sylvanas and the jailer across the sky from Torghast to where the Arbiter is, and then something happens because he has all the Covenant special things at this point. And if we show the skybox, it seems like whatever happened at the end wasn't good because Ouroboros now has a really dark, angry sky.
Mm-hmm.
So we don't know if Sylvanas helps us or something bad happens to the Arbiter, or if this is a result of the jailer being successful, or his magic, something backfired and now the sky is changed color. But yeah, it does not look very positive. And we don't know what happens to Sylvanas. You could make the parallel that we've fought all the Warbringers now from Battle for Azeroth, and Ashara escaped and Jaina escaped. So you could, by that logic, Sylvanas would escape. But yeah, it does not seem. It seems like there's an interesting twist at this raid.
Mm-hmm.
And the Arbiter is going to be involved. And last we saw her, she was not very. She was not really alive and well. She was kind of, saggy and ailing. So doesn't seem like it would be much of a showdown between the jailer and the Arbiter. Maybe we're like try to prevent him from damaging her. Who knows?
There's some really interesting comparison pictures here as well,
Yeah.
with the lighter version and then the dark version.
Yeah.
Looks really
So we've
cool.
also yeah, we've also data mined some skyboxes that are called like, Arbiter Sky Fight. And it's like, oh, I guess this is going to be related to us being there. And
Mm-hmm.
I think we have this in the notes later on, but it feels like if the jailer is fighting the Arbiter, that seems pretty like pivotal to the expansion. Like it kind of feels like a 9-2 moment. So I almost wonder if because Shadowlands is behind, they're going to be condensing the storyline because like this reminds
Yeah,
me
I
of
really hope not.
like us defeating Kil'jaeden and then like
Mm-hmm.
Argus is in the sky. Like it feels like it's a moment that should be um like slightly later in the expansion because they've been really hyping up the Arbiter versus the Jailer, for a while. And with Shadowlands, like all the lore is brand new, so you have to like build it up before you get the payoff. So it's like, well, if this story might be wrapping up now, like what are they gonna do after? They've just
Yeah.
been really highlighting this one thread.
Mm-hmm. It does feel like a lot of things are being tied together, not just with these things here with Arbiter and everything. There's also other storylines sort of coming together a little bit in the raid and in general too. So it does make you wonder what else will the expansion be about. We've been waiting for these moments
Yeah.
of the fate of Anduin, for example, and the fate of Sylvanas and
Yeah,
fate
Anduin's
of
nowhere to be
Arbiter.
found.
No,
Like
that's
he's
also
not.
really interesting. Mm-hmm.
So I mean, maybe there could be like a patch where we are examining what happens to Anduin.
But yeah, but it
But
still
it
feels like
yeah
max one more patch, right?
yeah, like it definitely feels like to me it's like okay, the sky is bad, and then we learn what the jailer's conflict is. We learn something about the
Yeah.
Dreadlord, and we go off and we deal with we go off and deal with like with the Argus of the expansion. We go find another
Mm-hmm.
fantastical world.
Mm-hmm.
That's the vibe I'm getting. I could be wrong, but it does feel like like there aren't tons of major characters. The Covenant campaign is wrapping up, so it definitely feels like I don't know. I mean, maybe they could do something with Uther or Arthas. Surprise Arthas patch. But yeah, I am
Surprise.
curious to hey, he has a statue now, so he
Yeah.
could be back. But yeah, I just it feels like
It's a very
it feel
legitimate concern.
yeah. or like a warlord situation where things were taking a while, so like the middle fluff of the story got cut, and we went from Blackrock Foundry to Tanan Jungle, and it felt like some steps were lost along the way, but they had to keep getting expansions out.
Mm-hmm.
But the fight itself with Sylvanas does sound like it's pretty interesting, especially with that new model we found. So why don't we take the
Yeah,
spoiler tag off, and we can highlight some of her loot, and then we will discuss the model in a few.
that sounds good. Model is okay without the spoiler tag?
Yeah, I mean it's been shared everywhere.
All right.
But yeah, why don't
Okay,
we
spoiler
highlight the
tag
sour
down.
thing? We could highlight the sour thing, which is interesting because she has a trinket that is called Old Warrior's Soul, which is clearly a sour fang
Mm-hmm.
reference.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
And also for people who might have muted until now, we've talked
yeah,
about the Sylvanas stuff that is more lore related, and now we're looking at things that are a bit more straightforward, like loot. So yeah, now
yeah.
we have a trinket.
So this is interesting because, Sour Fang died after all the after death broke. So instead of going to like a happy paradise, was he stuck in the maw? And we haven't seen him in Shadowlands, so it makes you wonder, why does Sylvanas have Sour Fang's trinket? Like is this like the essence of Sour Fang? Like, are we going to see him in
Yeah.
Shadowlands? It feels a
Mm-hmm.
little strange we haven't seen him. But yeah, she is holding onto part of his soul apparently, which is interesting after their big BFA conflict.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and then we also have this should make mount collectors happy. We have a mythic mount from Sylvanas, which is good to know because not every raid comes with a mythic mount like
True.
Jaina did, but I don't think Ashara did.
Mm-hmm.
And this is Vengeance Reigns, and it is her black Dragonhawk.
Mm-hmm.
And the flavor text is interesting. It is Sylvanas lost a part of herself the day Arthas took her life, and the darkness within her grew to fill the void.
It's
So
so cool, especially with the red eyes.
yeah. And yeah, I mean it's not the happiest mount, but it also reminds people like I don't know what happens in the raid, but if she does something bad, it's like, well, like this goes back to Arthas. Like
Yeah.
she was, even and then if Arthas was the jailer, you know, Sylvanas, I don't know, having part of herself lost and then being filled in by um this corruption or whatever, the darkness, it's like, well, this goes back to their shitty master plan. So
Yeah.
the Dragonhawk, I know a lot of people were like, oh, I want this badass mount, but I think it's really interesting. Like it reflects her elven heritage, but how she's changed over time. And the Dragonhawk definitely has the same armor as Sylvanas, with the metal tips on its wings and the spikes. So I think it's a good reflection on like Sylvanas' heritage and where she's ended up.
Mm-hmm. I think the texture on it, on the wings and things itself, is a little bit boring, but the spikiness and shininess of the sort of metal parts of the mount itself and the head itself with the red eyes looks really cool.
Yeah, I think it's also interesting seeing how much she's let go of her past life. Like, she's not leading the Forsaken, she, abandoned the Horde, she didn't care for Nathanos. I think it's sort of touching in a way that she has, held onto a mount or something from her past life.
Yeah, that's true. It's a nice little detail, nice little nod to that.
Like, they could have just done, some, like, spiky Torghast, maw
Mm-hmm.
construct thing.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I think this is interesting, and Alliance players don't have a lot of Dragonhawk mounts, so I think that this is an interesting one that they can get.
Mm-hmm.
Finally, these were very popular. There are a bow and cloak that have unique effects for hunters, and one is um, a bow that has the Windrunner Marksman Hunter appearance, and
Mm-hmm.
it turns Killshot into Wailing Arrow, which is one of her Heroes of the Storm abilities. And then there's something called a Quiver, which is actually a cloak that has another hunter ability. And I wonder if it's going to look like an actual quiver. That could be interesting tech, because like Blizzard has wanted to
Oh,
do,
good
like
point.
for years they've wanted to do quivers.
Yeah.
So
It would be a great
yeah, people.
opportunity to do so. And we have been seeing very unique types of transmogs for the back piece, so definitely
Mm.
could be.
Yeah, so obviously the loot tables are pretty unfinished at this point.
Mm-hmm.
Because like they all have placeholder names, but
Mm-hmm.
these and the Sourfang trinket stood out from Sylvanas' table, and I'm sure as they add more, there will be more fun items as well. Like I'm sure there'll be like a Nathanos item, or I don't know, maybe something with her necklace or her sisters.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Speaking of which, like I think it's. I mean, we've been talking about who makes an appearance with the raid, but I think it's interesting we haven't. If we're fighting Sylvanas, I feel like her sisters should be involved or know about this in some form.
Yeah,
It
I
seems sort of like
agree.
a missed opportunity.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Especially because, like in the BFA comic, when she met her sisters, there was hints that she wanted to like kill them and raise them in service of death. And for whatever reason, like their apology or I don't know, their kindness, she decided not to. So
Mm-hmm.
I feel like it would be interesting to have them. I don't know. I actually have them all meet in game because they never actually met in game. It was just that
Yeah.
one comic.
Yeah, I remember that comic, and it was a really interesting interaction because they all had like their own kind of I guess brains racing in different ways for different reasons. Like you have
Yeah.
Sylvanas with her troubles, and then you have the other two with their own sets of troubles that we
Yeah,
got.
Galeria with Void.
Mm-hmm, yeah, like the Void Whispers. So it was a really interesting take on that, and having seen or being able to see that in game would be really interesting and very fitting now if we're gonna meet her soon.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think the other two sisters went into the Shadowlands, but I feel like I don't know. I mean, if we're going there all the
Yeah, they can
time,
also
and like
visit.
all these random like the characters from Stormwind, showing up, being like, oh, my son died in a here. I feel like
They
this
could
would be
also.
where like they want to talk reason to her, or they know her the best, so they're
Mm-hmm.
giving advice on how to follow, how to track her down.
Mm-hmm.
um and I think it would be interesting if they were involved in some way,
I
but right
agree.
now we don't have any of that, and also no mention of Nathanos or
Mm-hmm.
data mining mentions of Anduin either. So maybe that could be a follow-up story for later in Shadowlands. Like what happens to Anduin after this raid? Is his hold loosened? Is he gonna be part of the Sylvanas fight? What about Nathanos? He was really happy to die and go to the Shadowlands. It feels
Mm-hmm.
like if we're fighting Sylvanas, he would show up. Like, is he going to be a mythic phase?
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah.
Is he
So
gonna? Yeah, no, that's a really interesting one actually. I'm hoping for a really epic mythic phase that we will see
I
for the
just don't
first
want
time during the
Nathanos
race.
to escape again. Like, no, just
Yeah, no,
yeah.
it's enough.
And I know it's like we get it. He's plot armor. Just,
Mm-hmm.
just go away. Stop being super powerful.
Mm-hmm. We also
um,
found the really cool models.
yeah. Do you want to highlight the PvP and Mythic Plus or move into the model first?
Well, I was
Yeah.
thinking like the Sylvanas models might be
Oh yeah. Why don't we highlight
relevant
her
to
first?
this, and then we can,
Yeah. Let's
yeah,
do that.
yeah.
Yeah, so we've got Banshee Sylvanas, and she does not have legs.
Yep, looks really cool, by the way.
Yeah, it's basically her Covenant armor with a red tint to it. And
Mm-hmm.
what's interesting is, remember Blizzard kept saying that they worked really hard to like make sure all the grays contrasted against each other well, and they kept like tweaking her proportions and like
Mm-hmm.
her colors so it just wouldn't look like like the same color skin.
Mm-hmm.
I think that I think the red looks good because you get more contrast. Like it's multiple colors going on, and
Mm-hmm.
her
I
eyes really
agree.
out.
Oh yeah,
And
the eyes too. They stick out so much like this. It looks so good.
yeah, and even looking closer, you still see that Sarafang's scar is on her eye.
Mm-hmm.
So there's still like really good attention to detail.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I think that this works really well. There are mentions in the fight multiple times that Sylvanas becomes a Banshee. There's a stage that's called the Banshee Queen. So I think that she will transform into this for that phase.
Mm-hmm.
And who knows, maybe if there's, I mean, this is speculation, but we don't know how the fight ends. But if she does something unexpected, the colors could also be like, well, I look like I'm with the jailer and the mob, but I'm actually my own agent. I've got my own, colored armor. I'm
Mm-hmm.
not his servant. I sometimes work with him, but I've got my own agenda. So you know, I'm not following anyone's covenant. I'm my own person.
Mm-hmm. I also want you guys to take note of the shoulders. If you
Yeah.
look at the shoulders right now, because the next image is very, very relevant to this. So,
Yeah. So we have data mined a separate model marked as shoulder underscore leather. So this could be like
mm-hmm.
a garrosh, shoulder thing. A lot of people are sad because Sylvanas, was a hunter and hunters were male, not leather. So
Yeah, that is one very good point because a lot of times we say that the male users get the shortest straw
mhm.
all the time when it comes to transmog, and if hunters are getting these special effects like from the cloak and stuff, then it is kind of sad if they can't transmog into this.
Yeah, maybe they'll do multiple versions or make it cosmetic. But right now,
Yeah.
it is marked as leather. So But yeah, that is Sylvanas's model, and if she's flying through the sky in a patch, then it explains why she doesn't have legs.
Wait, no, that's not the real reason. The reason is that she skipped leg day, of course.
Oh yeah, that's it. There's no leg day in the mall.
Okay, I kind of like just stole that joke, but it's okay. I'll take full credit for it. Thank you. But yeah, I wanted to quickly show you guys that model because it's relevant to Sylvanas that we were just talking about. But before we continue into the new model updates, let's quickly go through one more thing to do with systems and looting, which is that PvP is also getting an updated system. It reminds a lot of the WoD system, if you guys remember, where the PvP gear is scaled up in PvP instances or in PvP combat.
Yeah, so we data mined part of a system for this, and then Blizzard clarified it, which I think was really good, as there was some new that wasn't apparent just from the data. So basically, they did this blue post, and the highlights were that PvP gear in PvP situations will end up 7 item levels higher than is obtainable in any other situations. Now, there's a little bit of a gray area, but not as extreme as before, where if you can hit 2400 and get the elite weapons in PvE, it is 1 item level better than the mythics than the current weapons available. So you still might have people trying to do the elite weapons, but it's not as much of a gap. But
No.
obviously, if you get this weapon week 1, it still is like amazing and super super helpful if you are doing PvE.
Yeah, I mean,
But
if
the
if
gap
you're if you're good
has
at,
closed a little.
yeah, well, even a lot actually, because
Yeah.
currently was a difference between. Well, if you can't kill Sergeant Athreus, the best item level weapon you could find was probably 226, and then the PvP one was 233 if you got 2400, and now the difference will be if we use current item levels, it would be like, well, we even have a table here actually,
Yeah.
where you guys put together a list of what the item levels would be with current system. Here. So you can see here that the let's see here. With the new system, the weapons would go up to 240, whereas the rest of the gear would be 233. And then I guess in PvE sources, the highest weapon obtained would be like 239, technically
Oh, wait, I
speaking.
think that's a different table. This was just like the first table on the thing was like, hey, if we took the existing loot and if the system was affecting Castle Nathria, but the second table I think is more accurate, so you can see how
Okay, let's go to that
it's
one then.
pretty. Yeah, so it's like the end
Here we
bosses
go.
in the mythic raid and the PvP weapons are the same item level.
Gotcha. Gotcha. Oh yeah, okay. So the mythic raid
This
last
is
two
the thing.
bosses is 259, and then
Yeah,
the gear in PvP would be 259 as well. Oh yeah, because
yeah,
we haven't seen a system yet of this
right.
of the weapon being a different item level in PvP.
Yeah. So, I'm glad Blizzard wrote a blue post on this because the data mining was like very. It took a bunch of like old Warlords gear and just put the word like rename at the top, and it had like the tooltips implying it was different in PvP. So there was a lot of confusion. So, um, I'm glad they made a post on this, and they said looking forward, season 2 duelist gear will be item level 246 baseline. It will scale up to 259 in PvP. At the same time, mythic gear from the Sanctum of Domination and vault rewards will be item level 252. So, and then the last two bosses have is slightly higher as well. So,
Mm-hmm.
um, it seems like they're trying to improve the system. We'll see how it goes. Testing is pretty new. I don't think any of this gear is on the PTR yet to test, which is why they needed the blue post. But there you have it.
Does this mean that getting mythic gear will then be fine in PvP? Because if you're getting 252 and 259 for mythic raiding, that doesn't get
Well, the
scaled down, does it?
Um, it does not get scaled down, but I think the idea is that um, if you have the PvP gear from the equivalent source, it gains additional levels in PvP situations. So this blue post is saying that. Why did I? What was exactly the thing?
It's always so confusing when you see so many numbers because as soon as you
Yeah,
think that you've made sense of it all, suddenly things don't make sense again because there's so many
right.
numbers.
So I
Um,
think the idea is that um, the duelist gear
mm-hmm,
will has a lower item level than early mythic bosses, but it scales up to 259.
mm-hmm.
While if you get a piece of mythic loot from the first raid boss, um, it starts off at 252, but it stays at 252 in PvP. If that makes sense.
Gotcha,
So,
gotcha. So
like,
PvEers trying to do PvP, high-end PvEers trying to do PvP will probably have most of their items being lesser item level. They might have a few
right.
slots from the last two, which would then
Mm-hmm.
be equivalent to PvP.
Right. I mean, there is still the issue of does this shard of domination, cloak work in
Yes.
PvP,
Yep.
or is there like an OP trinket in the raid that is still powerful in PvP as we've seen before,
Mm-hmm.
but the item levels, at least on paper, should favor PvP gear for PvP.
Gotcha. All right. Yeah. Well, I'm excited to see how this plays out. I've been doing a lot of PvP this expansion, and I have been very happy with the gearing because it's been very straightforward, and PvP gear has been best for PvP, which for a long time hasn't been the case. Usually, you always have to go and do PvE in order to PvP. But of course, there was frustration with PvP gear then being too good to the point where raiders felt like they had to PvP a lot, not just for one or two items, but for like maybe half their
Right.
gear, which of course is wrong. But hopefully, in this case with this system, people who raid can feel like they can get their best gear from raiding, but it's still decent enough to do both contents, and the same thing with PvP, being able to do things in PvE as well.
Yeah, I think Blizzard just wants to cut down on like the whole idea of people getting like wanting to buy boost for a PvP weapon or feeling like that is the
It's
absolute
kind
best
of game
thing.
breaking, right? Like you're not
Yeah,
really playing the game anymore.
right. And it's like, well, if you are wanting to do well in raiding, then
You
like
have to.
maybe you should be doing like raid activities as opposed to
Yeah.
needing to like get elite PvP. Like it's it's um doesn't seem very intuitive.
Mm-hmm.
One more thing before we quickly do models, and that is on the Mythic Plus front, we already had the gear improvement system with Valor points in 905, so no new systems there. But it seems Blizzard is inspired by the Raider IO score, and they're adding their own in-game Mythic score feature
Yeah.
in patch 9.1.
That was really
And
interesting.
yeah, it's interesting because that's like a pretty controversial feature, and Blizzard usually doesn't add rankings like this, or they say, oh, it's just third party, but uh they are, it seems like they're trying to actually do a real system, and this came around the time Blizzard announced a little mini event for the great push week, even though the prize pool was on the small side. So it's like, is Blizzard trying to turn Mythic Plus into its own, leaderboard similar to PvP? And if you have a leaderboard with ranks, does that mean they can get more rewards in the future, like PvP, like, gladiator mounts or, transmog, stuff like that? So I think if they do it well, it could be interesting. It's just it's such a controversial feature that you have to do it well. You don't want
Mm-hmm.
to increase people being toxic, or like having filters or restrictions that don't make sense, or having it like inaccurately reflect people's expertise. But it's interesting that Blizzard chose this to be the third party site feature they were inspired to put in the game.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting
So
to see how they're gonna pull it off as well. Because as you said, it's a very dangerous thing to implement, but at the same time, they can probably see how many people use the system, right? So if everyone is using Raider IO, then maybe that means, hey, maybe we should have our own system. Why should people feel like they have to download add-ons and use like third-party websites to track things? Maybe it's time that we take it upon us. And it's a very good point that you mentioned about the ladder system in PvP. Maybe that does mean that they might look into having a, highest percentage of players get to unlock something at the end of the season. That would be really cool, actually.
yeah, and maybe if they have more details in game, I mean, it's wishful thinking. It's you can't ever reduce toxicity in game,
No.
but maybe I don't know. Maybe if the UI is really good in game, it could it could be presented better, so people feel like they're not being, I don't know, rejected outright. Although I will say that, like, the LFG system has a lot to be desired as far as like UI and finding party groups and spammers and boosters. So I just hope that this system can do well with all like the extra limitations you have going on.
What if these
Um,
rating systems is for them to help create a better LFG system? So
I
people
would
can
be
find
okay
people
with
with
that.
similar scores.
Yeah, I would be okay with that, and it could also help people being like, oh, I get rejected because they only want like a 15 or bust, and it's like, well, what happened? Maybe this is good for people at the medium level who are like, I just want to do a 10, and then maybe you'll get like you populated with people with a score
Mm-hmm.
around those doing a 10 and under, as opposed to being like, well, this person wants to do a 10, but they only want people that have done 15, stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
um or if people feel like they don't want to rely on a website, like it's weird, but like I get it with Wowhead people, or some people are like, why do I have to leave Blizzard to learn about the game? Maybe it can make Mythic Plus less intimidating if it's part of like an official system that you're going up through the ranks. And if Blizzard has this data, they can be like, oh, we're seeing that um yes, the top end there's a meta, but it's weird how at the middle, like, it's also very, there's a similar meta. Or maybe they'll be like, oh, actually with our data we're seeing that it's a good breakdown of people with scores. So maybe Blizzard will learn something about this too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm really curious to
There's
see
always this
how it's
fear
gonna work.
that like, oh, um, because the pros only use these classes, I'm not a pro, but now I'm expected to be that class, or it shouldn't matter what my class is, but people expect me to be this class, and that's not fair. I like playing whatever. So
Mm-hmm.
hopefully the score will address some of these things instead of, making it more exclusive. Like, oh, we're doing the raid, you must have XYZ like Mythic Plus score, or else you cannot do the unrelated raid.
Yeah. The problem is that people always find reasons, right? Like,
Yeah,
at
there's
some
always
point, yeah,
your
there's always
score.
something to compare. Like, ever since, like, gear scores in the one, was it, like, Wrath of the Lich King? There's always something to compare. I mean, we see it even in the first week of heroic raids being introduced. Oh, you need ahead of the curve linked. And it's like, it's literally just been out for like a few days.
Right.
Yeah, well, you haven't done it on your main yet. Oh my god, like what kind of scrub are you? So like no matter what we do, people will use metrics to try and decide who is good or bad at the game, which is really toxic in essence.
Mm.
But I'm really curious to see how the scoring system will work. Maybe it will somehow be possible to make it non toxic. I remember the ladder system in game, which happened during challenge modes, which was really interesting.
Yeah.
So it does kind of feel like maybe there will be more emphasis on people who are at the top and give
Yeah.
them
It
maybe
could
give them special
also
titles.
I mean, it could also get more people interested in the system if it's like an in-game score. Like you could have people being like, "Oh, I never did this before. I thought it was just like an esports thing." And maybe with more visibility, you could have more people trying it out. Or if it's easier to find groups directly versus needing an add-on, maybe more people would sign up to do that.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, we'll have to see how it plays out. But
Mm-hmm.
interesting that Blizzard has chosen to do this
Yeah,
for
I'm very
patch
curious.
9.1.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good point. Doing it mid expansion is a bit like, oh, interesting. Guess we'll
Yeah,
see.
I mean, I guess I guess maybe it's been in the works for a while, but
Maybe. Mm-hmm.
with the lack of new content, we've been seeing a lot of people on Wowhead like really interesting in weekly Mythic Plus tips, or like what Shadowlands DPS is doing the best in rankings for a week. So this is something that Blizzard may think, if they're slow developing things, with COVID or whatever, that this is a system that people will turn to, and it makes sense to invest in it because, it will help them whenever they don't have something new.
Mm-hmm.
So like the benefits are really long lasting.
Mm-hmm.
So
Definitely.
I think we can move on to the transmog and models now. Fun, flashy
Yeah.
stuff on the screen.
More funny things to look at. And yeah, let's start with Pepe. Let's start with Pepe.
We got a Pepe. Yeah, we have a Pepe.
Okay. There's
Yeah.
Pepe
So
IRL. Oh, that way.
Yep.
And first up will be Pepe from the Venthyr Covenant.
He's
Bum
so
bum
cute. I love
bum.
Vampire Pepe.
It's so
His
cute.
hat is so adorable.
So stylish. Just look at him.
I know.
It's amazing. Yeah, he's got his little collar going on. He's got a little, what is that, like a mini shield, mini weapon? And
Yeah, little vampire hunter.
yeah, little vampire hunter. Very fancy hat as well. Just being real fancy. Yeah, Vern
Yeah.
Birdsing. I love
These
it.
costumes are so detailed compared to past
Oh
Pepes. I
yeah,
love it.
for sure. I like the level of detail.
Yeah.
Next up, we can take a look at Maltraxus Pepe, which at first
Jell-
can be argued to not have that much detail, but it's still a very, very specific look, though.
yeah, it's Jellycat versus Jelly Pepe. Who will win?
Mm-hmm. This is very, very specific to Maltraxus, so it's really fitting. They could have also gone a different path and made it a more more what would it be, like a more
Spikes.
necrolordy,
Yeah, like
spiky,
spikes and metal.
yeah, more like a little
Yeah.
warlock Pepe. But they decided to go this route, which is fine as well, of course. It does make it quite unique, seeing Pepe's ribs and stuff.
I wonder if the Jelly Cat and Jelly Pepe will have any interactions because they've got the same,
Oh,
appearance.
yeah. Interesting. They might. You never know.
Yeah, and cats and Pepes don't always get along. They look very
Yeah.
similar. So.
Mm-hmm. And then we also have Kyrie and Pepe.
Yeah,
There.
they're also cute.
Yeah, he is blue, like Bluther. And
Fred, come over. We're discussing Pepe.
oh, he's got a sword on his back. And he's got
Yeah,
the armor going on in very Kyrian like
little glowy
style.
effects.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Glowy effects too. And last but not least, we have Night Fae. Has to be
I
my
like this one
personal
the
favorite.
best.
Yeah, we
Yeah,
both.
it's like it's really committed to the theme. Like he's, purple.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of feel like the Vinther one looks the best, but as a Night Fae myself, I have to say that this one is my favorite. It does
I
have
think
the
like
cool details with the eyebrows.
yeah, they're all interesting because I mean obviously there's a time and place. Regular orange bird Pepe wearing, just a hat and being like a normal fluffy bird, but all of these do well at adding like a certain tint or like being super detailed for Pepe.
Oh yeah.
Um, so like the Night Fae is purple and the Kyrian is blue and
Mm-hmm.
Venthyr Pepe is, white and black and Maltraxus is green. Like they're very it's not just like, oh, it's an orange bird with like a spike on its head. So
Yeah,
it's
no, you're absolutely
yeah.
right. It's not like Pepe is just doing a simple cosplay in his first year of streaming. This is Pepe, being a full time cosplayer, putting
Yes.
on all the different details from, the top of the head to the bottom of the feet. Everything is in style and on point for this cosplay. He's I think Pepe at this point is trying to win the cosplay competition at BlizzCon actually. I think after
Yeah, I
spending so
think
much time inside the past year, he's just been working on his arts and craft skills, and we can see it
yeah.
here.
And if you're curious if the Pepe will match your in-game armor, you can go to the PTR dressing room and we have that Pepe option and we've added these to the Pepe options you can choose between.
Yep. And also,
So,
an interesting thing, if you take note, is that Pepe's body looks wooden,
yeah.
which is a pretty cool detail.
Yeah, I mean, he has a very interesting texture. There is that Pepe
Mm-hmm.
fishing bobber that they made. So
Oh.
maybe they're using that as the model to have all the details on it.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, he's just so cute, and he's
Mm-hmm.
available at Renown 48. And yeah,
Mm-hmm.
it's always just really fun when like memes or little details from random expansions are still going strong years and years later.
Mm-hmm. I love it.
So
And also like how he has a one leaf at the very, very top, which reminds me of, on babies where they have like a one hair strand, like one
yeah.
curl at the top of the head. And that's what
Yeah.
Pepe has. He's just got one leaf at the top, and that's his full on hairdo for this look.
Yeah, it looks like he's wooden, but he's got like one feather leaf.
Mm-hmm.
Uh but yeah, they're all really fun. It's always fun to see Pepe. I wish they kept doing uh plushies of Pepe. I think these would be really fun plushies.
Oh, yes. Having these match with the other ones would be great.
Yeah.
That would go
So,
really well together.
yeah.
Yeah, that was Pepe for you. We already covered Sylvanas earlier.
Got
Um,
Thrall, who's really interesting.
but yeah, we got Thrall, which we kind of speculated before. If you guys remember the statue from last year, we suspected that the statue has an updated model that we can expect in game. And surely enough, the new model is very reminding of it.
Yeah, so Thrall's had many versions of his arm from when WoW had less, graphics capability to pretty recently, and we've had the War Chief version of Thrall, and then like the Shaman version of Thrall, and then the I'm emo and taking a break version of Thrall, and now we have another version of Thrall who has some of his old War Chief armor, but like high definition, reflecting that he's back with the Horde Council, but still showing some of his roots, like he has more of a harness on his chest as opposed to, the vanilla quality armor. And like Annie said, when they did the Thrall statue last year, the really expensive Blizzard statue, we were all like, hey, Thrall's got some sweet new armor that we've not seen before, and it's kind of like his old armor, but not exactly. What's going on? And that's basically the armor that we're now seeing in game for him.
Mm-hmm.
Like the shoulders are near identical, the bracers are identical, and that, of course, leads to speculation that if the statue has him using the axe and Doomhammer, does that mean he's going to get the ability to use Doomhammer again in game?
Mm-hmm.
If like statue really foreshadowed him.
And also, as
Um,
mentioned in the chat, note the detail of the scars on his back.
yeah, I thought that was a very interesting touch because, we focus so much on Thrall being the war chief, but with his history, as a slave and a gladiator, that's like a really dark part of his history, as well as the orcs that we don't touch upon as much in game. And I think that people should be reminded of this and feel uncomfortable and think about the story that happened in his past. It's not just like a war chief, Jesus meme.
Mm-hmm. Definitely.
So, and if you maybe you didn't remember at the time as to chat, but there was a bunch of interviews leading up to Shadowlands, and one was talking about how they wanted to have Draka and Thrall reunite in the future. So maybe they're getting his model updated for a potential reconciliation, and we've got Garrosh around in Afterlives. We've got Sourfang maybe around in some form. So if they want to do more with Thrall, it would make sense to give him a new model if his close up is coming soon.
Yeah.
So next up is just one that was really fun at BlizzConline that we wanted to highlight. And there is a pirate dragon that is a boss in the new Mega Dungeon. And people were really hyped about this model when we saw a quick picture at BlizzConline, and they wanted it to be a mount. And we just wanted to like zoom in and highlight stuff because it looks really cool. There's a
It
lot of
does
fun
look
details.
really cool.
Like it's got a hook as a tail, and the hook is like tied on with ship rope, and there's like
Mm-hmm.
daggers on its side. It's got
Golden ring.
jewelry on its wings. It
Mm-hmm.
has an eye patch.
Yeah.
It's got a
It
ring on
looks
its
amazing.
paw. Yeah, it's just really fun. Like as you zoom in and you keep looking, you keep noticing more and more details, and it's just really fun.
Wait,
I hope, yeah,
I didn't notice the ring on the wing itself until
yeah.
now. So he's got a ring on his like finger, as you can see in the first picture, and then he's also got one on his wing. That's funny. I didn't notice that before. That's a lot of little details.
Yeah, so it's just a really fun model, and I hope it's not just like a one-time boss because I hope it's one of those things where they're like, oh, we got a really fun response to this dragon, we should keep her around and like use her in a future patch just because people really like the concept, kind of like Sire Denathrius got a really fun reaction, and they
Mm-hmm.
kept him around more. So it would be cool if they did more with the pirate dragons.
Yeah, definitely.
A lot, of the Dragonflight has like a very serious story, or they're like on the verge of extinction, and this one seems to be like very happy and successful. So I think it would be intriguing to learn more about this dragon or more of her clan.
Mm-hmm. And uh, this is not a mount. at least not
No.
yet. This is a boss that we will see in the new mega dungeon. So
Yes.
that's what this is. I mean, who knows? Maybe it would become a mount at some point. We don't know. But for now, it's an actual NPC, not a
Yeah.
mount.
This next one we wanted to highlight. It's a small update, but it's very interesting. If you watch the BlizzCon line cinematic where the Bastion leader gets stabbed, um, there was, that maw wound that she got at the end. Blizzard clarified that she was alive, so it's not a spoiler she's alive, but what's interesting is that Blizzard updated her model to have the scar on her chest,
Yeah.
for continuity, which is interesting.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Here we got
yeah, just a small
slightly
detail that I
closer.
thought was cool. And then this is also interesting. We'll discuss it more in the lore section, but we also learned at BlizzCon 9 that there's going to be Dreadlords in 9.1. And we have really cool looking updated Dreadlord models, as well as I really like these Dread Queens, and they're not like, sexy succubus demons, like it's very exaggerated. They look very similar to um the male demons, and they look very angry and muscular, and really cool armor, really cool jewelry adornments, really cool horns, and yeah, I'm just happy to see all these model updates. And like the pirate dragon, some of these too have jewelry on their wings.
Yeah. They have some really cool armor too, a lot of these. So, a lot of these updated models will most likely be something that we see a lot in the raids as well, perhaps. And you can see that there's a lot of different style to them.
Yeah, I really like the fully armored ones because
Mm-hmm.
their wings have cool, interesting armor at the top.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, everyone is like, I want these as an allied raid. Like, there's some children like I would love to customize, my wings and my
Mm-hmm.
horns. They've got really cool, face tattoos, which they do. And I love the horns, how they're just like super screws. So, uh,
Oh yeah, those ones. Mm-hmm.
yeah. So they're
And
just a
these are
lot of
like the female versions that Perk was
yeah.
talking about with yeah, very detailed armor and they look like Perk said, instead of this sort of very slim succubus idea, it's more looking like a very strong and muscular female instead.
Yeah. So like sometimes like I think the Tolvir you didn't have female versions of that. So I think it's good that they're like, okay, if this race is super important, we should, add in some different body types, but keep them both with the same vibe, as opposed to, like the women being like the cutesy ones, like I don't know, staying at home, like like cooking and making the.
Yeah.
So yeah, but yeah, we're gonna see a lot more of the Dreadlord 9.1. Blizzard already said that. And we'll cover some of the reasons why we think we're seeing them more in the spoiler section a little bit later in the show. But yeah,
Mm-hmm.
these are really fun.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so yeah, good job on the Dreadlord.
Indeed. Is the
And then
next
I think
picture here gonna be under spoilers, perhaps?
yeah, I think we should do it under spoilers, and then we'll go back to talking about like Transmog, which doesn't need a spoiler. So this is like just
Okay.
a spoiler for a few
Mm-hmm.
minutes.
So last model here, putting up the spoiler tag, and it's only one, so it shouldn't take
Yeah,
very long. But you might want to mute this part and come back in
yeah.
5 minutes, 3 minutes. But yeah, we have an image, a very interesting image that I will pull up in just a sec. And yeah, Prick, you can introduce it if you'd like.
Yeah, so this kind of Santa Claus Titan looking model is what is called the Primus, which is a big deal because, the Primus is shrouded in mystery. No one exactly knows what he looks like. And, we are learning other things about him in 9.1. But yeah, now we are finally seeing what he looks like. And he's definitely got Maltraxus vibes, but he also has Titan vibes to him with the long beard and the way his robes are. And, that sort of makes you think about the connection between, like, the Pantheon of the Titans and the Death Pantheon as well. And there was also some, like, leaked concept art saying that a character with a very similar beard and robe was the Jailer. Um, and it's
Mm.
interesting because this character kind of looks like that instead. But even if we didn't know about that because that was a leak, it's still, like, you can still clearly see kind of, interesting Titan references with the robe and the very dramatic beard.
Hmm. Very, very
So
long beard.
yeah, and just looking at it's like the his horns sort of like go into his eyes almost. It's
Yeah.
very very
Shapes his
interesting face.
eyebrows.
Yeah, and, like, obviously white hair, he's old, he's stooped over, one of his arms is extended.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure there's a staff that's meant to go in there. All the statues of the Primus have his staff he's carrying around. Um,
Mm. Mm-hmm.
so, but yeah, with all, and it also is a spoiler because it's like, oh, I guess we're gonna learn more about the Primus in 9-1. Like, he's not just gone for good. Um, I wonder if they're going to ever update. We'll also mention this at the end, but I wonder if they'll ever update the loading screens to be like, oh, look, instead of Margrave Crexus, who's here for 2 seconds, here's the Primus Maltraxus leader
Actually
on
true.
art instead. I guess it's sort of
Could
like,
be
oh,
about time.
like, this character has, like, more of a life living on in game art than he is in game.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel like if the Primus comes back in some form, maybe he should be in some art at some point.
Mm-hmm.
So that, I think we can take spoilers off, although we'll talk more about his identity right after models. And
Yeah.
we'll highlight some interesting transmog things before we get into some of the lore.
Yes. So in the lore section, spoilers will come back, but for now, we're just gonna go into a few more lighter topics like more transmog, because as we know, whenever this PTR, one of the biggest things in data mining is lots and lots of visual things. So now we have transmog updates. One of the most exciting things for a lot of people is that Transmog is now supposed to be working for each shoulder separately. And it's got a new UI that I have a picture of here as well, which is really cool and welcomed by most people, or by many, by everyone. I mean, who doesn't want to have the option to have two different shoulders? And if you don't like it, then you simply don't use it. I don't see how anyone would be against this.
Yeah, and this was something that was initially data mined during beta, but it just wasn't ready in time. There were some tech issues. But now you can select left and right shoulder options.
Mm-hmm.
So that's really cool. More customization is always good. I'm sure there's a lot of people that just want, like, one shoulder, or, like, I think that's just really good to have an asymmetrical effect, or mixing together two different shoulders that kind of go together, or maybe even want, like, the mythic and heroic shoulders to I don't know, like, have
Yeah.
the same silhouette but different colors. So it's just, there's nothing negative about this change. It's really
Mm-hmm.
good to see it go into the game. And it's also example that of, people are like, oh, Blizzard forgets about stuff, and it's like, well, maybe they don't always. Maybe it really does take extra time because they said this wouldn't be ready, and instead of forgetting about it, they made it better, and now it's in game.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely.
So this next one is also very unexpected. But there are now cosmetic eyeglasses for transmog on the PTR, and a lot of people have been asking this for a while. Because they're like, I made this character to look like me, and I have glasses. I wish my character could also have glasses, or I'm a
Yeah.
civilian or a P. So
Mm-hmm.
even though this isn't like the oh, we want more character customization on the screen, I do think that this is a good way of how having you feel connected to your character by adding the glasses and sunglasses option.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's awesome. Now you can properly look like um, whatever look you're going for. This one actually just reminded me of Harry Potter. I just realized with those glasses. But you know, this is awesome. Being able to add more details that represents who you are in real life or represents what you would like to play as, right? Sometimes you don't play like a character that looks like you, but maybe like something that you want to look like. So having more options for that is great news.
Yeah, so it's just, it's nice how they are adding little things that can help people feel connected to their character.
Mm-hmm.
Also, could be interesting if your character. We mentioned in the past it would be nice if your character could look older. So if you have like the eyebrow scars, or if you like get the gray hair.
Oh, yeah,
There's a
that's also
lot to be
true.
done to
Mm-hmm.
show age, but if it's like if you want your character to be like an older, I'm a scholar, I'm a mage, my eyesight isn't great because I'm reading old books. If you want a way to show that this character is not just 20 years old, things like the
The
eyeglasses
half,
can
yeah,
show age.
the half circles, they look
Yeah.
perfect for like a sort of older, wiser look. So I could definitely see people running these with some silver white hair.
Yeah, I think that would be a fun effect.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and there's like so many like older sets where, they had like a cool kind of town look or like a caster look, but they didn't come with like shoulders or helms.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel that this could be a way to have something that fits like a more like relaxed RP vibe, like a
Mm-hmm.
civilian vibe, like a merchant or a scholar without being like, oh well, now I have this helm with, spikes and fire. It's nice to just have something relaxed.
Mm-hmm. Also pointed out in the chat, but you know how there's one version here of these glasses which is rose tinted? So it's
Oh
like
yeah.
rose tinted glasses. That's kind of funny and very, very relevant for people who RP. That's actually glorious.
Yeah. So this next one we can't highlight everything, but we just wanted to let you know that we data mine lots of weapons
Oh, yeah.
related to the dungeon and raid. The raid ones are sort of gloomier more than the dungeon ones. There are also some really interesting raid ones, like a knife named after Sylvanas, a mace named after the jailer, and then a sword named like a corrupted version of Anduin's sword, which was very similar to our April 1st joke. So
Yeah.
yeah, maybe we can just highlight a few of these, but like there's so many of these. So
Yeah, I've got a slideshow running, and I tried to put the slideshow on a bit of a quicker pace to give an idea of
yeah.
as many weapons as possible. But as you can see, there's many weapons already. There's not just, there's also different colors for all of these. I've mostly included like one or two of the same model, but there are more colors, and yeah, I think a lot of them do look really cool, especially the ones that do look a bit gloomier but with the red details. Oh, as I say that, this one for example
Yeah.
looks amazing. And yeah, there's weapon types for all different styles there too. Like you see some that are Kyrian styled, you see some that are a bit more skull like, a bit more necrolordy, and yeah, they some
I
pretty cool
really
weapons
like
out there.
how it's like the flail, because there aren't very many flails in the game, and people really like the protection paladin and warrior, the protection warrior ones. So it's interesting to see, that similar aesthetic return, where it's like the chain with the skull at the end that's sort of floating around with the cool physics.
Mm-hmm.
So that's one that stood out to me besides Anduin's. And there's also like the fist weapon that was very StarCraft from the dungeon. Um, it has like the neon lasers shooting out of it, so that was fun to see as well.
Wait, let me see which one you're talking about here.
It's fist weapon dungeon if you have the post open.
I see it.
Yeah,
Okay, I think it was in the slideshow somewhere, but I'll just drag
yeah,
it in to show it individually instead. This one. And it comes in different colors too. It's
Yeah.
really cool. And that reminds me of the effect of this other weapon. Let me just find it quick. Which also came in different colors. Bum, bum, bum. I think they were swords, like one hands from dungeons. Here, these. Yeah, sword, one hand, dungeon boss. These look really interesting. Let me drag it in.
Oh yeah, those are fun. Yeah, they're very neon. I like those.
They kind of match with the fist weapon that you just mentioned.
Yeah, it's like sort of like it's like lava, but in a sword.
Yeah, and they come in different colors too. So you see this in red, and then they have it in purple too, for example. And then you even have it in green here as
Yeah.
well. They look pretty cool.
Yeah, so I think that there's a good variety in the weapons this patch, and we mentioned in the raid part of the show how like yeah, there might be like too much Torghast and spikes and gloom aesthetics. So I think that the broker dungeon, which has the vibe of like a very bustling marketplace, that you can have some fun with more colorful and whimsical
Mm-hmm.
things that you know kind of futuristic but also like luxurious with cool details that you are not going to get from the raid aesthetics.
Yeah. So this weapon that we just showed now, for example, would be from the dungeon, not the raid.
Yeah. So I think the weapons are really cool, but the next thing I'm showing, I hope that there's like more coming because we have the covenant sets in the dressing room, but there's only like one for each covenant, and some of them are a little underwhelming. I can't remember. Do you know if each armor type is getting one set, or if it's just like cosmetic for one for each covenant?
I'm not sure either.
All right, because I feel like these could be a little more. Um,
I noticed
and
that
like I get
some covenants had more looks. What was that?
yeah. So what we're showing is basically every gets another set in 9-1, and the Kyrians have a tunic set and a toga set, which looks cool, but some people are like, I want my big shoulders. Like, is that it? Like, I am wearing a bathrobe. But, you know, I think Blizzard's trying something unique, so props there. And then the Venthyr get two different sets. Like two completely different sets. So that's what's making me think that maybe they have, I don't know, another set in store. But yeah, so these are tied to renown, we think, although we're not sure what's up with the second Venthyr set. And you know, they try to take a slightly different angle from the first armor sets, so you have a reason to collect these other sets.
Mm-hmm.
The Kyrian set's interesting because, like, I think it's really cool. They're trying to do tech to show like shorts and like togas and tunics, but I don't know if the Covenant set is like the right time to experiment and be like, oh, here's like your minimalist, you know, underwear set.
I do like it though. Okay,
Like I
so
think it's
here, this
cool.
one.
Yeah.
If you look at the legs
Yeah.
too, it's like shorts with the sort of shoes that go up to your knees, and
Yeah.
it reminds me of like ancient Greek. I
Yeah,
think
and
it's
I think it's very on theme. I just don't want people to be like, oh, you know, like
I'm raiding
Maltraxus
naked.
has big shoulders and like I just have, you know, I'm in my under. But I think it's a cool use of tech, and if it leads to people using like if there's more shorts armor coming, I think that could be interesting.
Mm-hmm.
And I like the shoes. Like normally boots are just like not very exciting, but these are
Yeah,
pretty
like
exciting.
yeah, exactly. It's like really unique as well. Oh, that's a good point because you could mix match that with other gear too to get a cool looking set too. Because those boots would probably go along with a lot of different shirts out there. So
Yeah.
yeah, I think I'm really happy about this set. But I can see how maybe Kyrian would feel like they want a proper set too, with like shoulders and everything. But I think this is very fitting, and they get something unique. I feel like in neither or
Yeah, that's true.
none of
Yeah.
the other ones actually feels like unique armor sets that anyone would consider using in the future. Like we took a look at the Venthyr one, of course.
Right.
which was here, came in different colors as well. And then we saw the Night Fae one shortly as well, which kind of reminds of similar things that we've seen recently, but updated to have a slightly new look. The legs are also kind of half. What are they called? Is it? It's like not completely long, but it's not shorts either.
Yeah, it's like a capri. Yeah, it's like a
Capri, is that the
halfway.
word? Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So they've got that going on for themselves, and then the Necrolords have got the real Necrolordy feeling, a bit of a warlock feeling to it, and which is cool and all. But I really do feel like the Kyrian one sticks out massively among these.
Something, I'm just zooming in on the Night Fae feet again, and if you look at the way the pants are, they're like flared off away from the legs, so they kind of look
Mm-hmm.
like realistic pants. And maybe that's another example of Blizzard doing stuff with pants tech because normally we're used to the pants kind of being like leggings that are pasted on
Sure.
to your character, or
Mm-hmm.
they have like a very obvious like I'm a gem, I am a 3D armor doodad stuck on your leg. But it's interesting seeing like more naturalistic
Mm-hmm.
um armor. And then even the quote boots, your character is basically barefoot, but you have these like ankle bracelet things around your feet with
I like those
made
boots.
of twigs or something.
Mm-hmm.
So this could be an example of Blizzard trying to uh, do interesting things with tech, kind of like the Rathian backpack, using this to try out new toys. And if it does well, we could see this incorporated into, tier sets or making things more creative with different silhouettes.
Mm-hmm. Also, the stick around the feet there or the legs, you
Hmm.
have a similar one on the arms too. I just noticed, so it's
Yeah.
like it's quite fitting that they match each
Oh,
other.
yeah. I think that's interesting too. Like normally when you say, "Oh, you've got arm decorations," oh, like it's an band that's just like one dimensional painted onto the arm. But
Mm-hmm.
here it's like its
It
own,
sticks out.
yeah, which I think it's interesting how they're trying to make the sets look like more realistic, and you can do
Mm-hmm.
interesting things when it doesn't just look like, oh, my character's wearing a shirt with, patterns on its arm.
Mm-hmm. I think what would have made Night Fae feel a little bit cooler would have been to maybe go a little bit more similar route as the Kyrian, to be less. Like I feel that the pants are really long and didn't need to be that way, and the pants could have had more. Be more made out of twigs, and maybe the chest piece too, to make it feel like you're just wearing a wooden suit in a way. Kind of similar to what's around the ankle and around the arm, but for a full set. I think that would have looked more unique. Right
Yeah,
now, I feel like
what's
the chest piece and the legs kind of makes it look boring.
yeah, like I think that the shoulders and the helm is really cool, especially
Mm-hmm.
the string decorations.
Mm-hmm.
But I get a little confused where you've got the chest, which looks like typical armor with like a
Yes.
random like exposed midriff.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then it's like, oh, now we're gonna reinforce the big belt over it. And I'm just like, I feel like it would have
Yep.
been better if it was like a simple flowing tunic with leaves, like all the accessories
Yeah.
are,
Yeah. Even if yeah.
leaning toward.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, I completely agree. Like we don't even need a belt here. It could have been very minimal. Um,
Yeah.
it has that I don't know what it's called, but on the belt it looks like there's a thing that sticks out, like kind of like tabards stick out and hang in front of you. I feel like all of that is just excessive and not
It's like,
needed.
how does like this isn't needed? Like if you're a cat, if you're just like casual in the woods, you don't need that.
Yeah.
And like if you're in battle, it's like, oh, let me put my crotch armor on with like my little like. It's like, why do you need this like random
Yeah.
flap like this little like, oh, I've got this thing to hold up my random piece of fabric, my little
Mm-hmm.
display case. It's like it doesn't make sense. Like I like the idea of the belt having the pouch and the vials on it, but that
Yeah,
could
I
have been
like the
like
pouch.
slung over the chest, like more casual, like give the person an actual backpack. um
Mm-hmm.
but I don't understand what this thing is in front of the belt. Like it's not making, it doesn't seem functional.
I wonder
I
if the chest
guess.
will look different on a female model.
Yeah, actually, let me pull it up because we've got these in the dressing room. Um, but yeah, it definitely feels like it could have just been a tunic as opposed to like a I'm pretending to be a plate chest with my midriff bared and then flowy linen pants.
Yeah, it looks like they wore clothing, like normal clothing, and then decided like, hey, let's add few like wooden details here and there.
Yeah. So I'm pulling this up on a night elf female in the dressing room.
Mm-hmm.
Taking a second to load.
Mm-hmm.
Come on.
And then you can link it to me so I can show
It's
it.
still. I'm. It's. It looks better. Like it flows more, but I'm not. Well, night. Okay, I've linked it in the notes.
Okay, let's take a look. Da, 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 da.
Like it almost looks like someone just decided to tear the fabric off their midriff and flop it over the belt for some reason.
Okay, so we've got here the model from the dressing room. I'm just gonna pull it in quick. Here. There we go. And up. Okay. So here it is on a night elf female, and yeah. Okay, so it is a little bit better. Mostly, I think, just because the model is thinner, so you see less of the cloth, but it's still a very similar case of a chest piece that covers most of you, and then the legs also just being kind of plain and long. It would make
Yeah.
more sense to have shorter legs, I think.
Yeah, I think if the chest was just like that feather texture, and then like
Yes.
maybe you keep the pants underneath so it's like a tunic that's like flowy with pants, I think that could work.
Mm-hmm.
But like right now I'm just sort of like, why is there like the metal? You know, it's
Mm-hmm.
like I see what they're going for. I just think they could have like gone even further and being like, I'm like a bird that's also wearing leaves.
Yeah. Like I come from nature.
Yeah. So that is the Covenant armor, and
Mm-hmm.
then final mounts. We wanted to highlight. I guess just to back up with the Covenant armor sets. I've been seeing some, like I guess critique floating around of, people like collecting armor sets, and if at least BFA gave us lots of recolors with Island, and people are feeling that they don't have as many armor sets in Shadowlands. Like we knew what the Maw sets were. They looked like the legendary, sets from 9.0. Like people like collecting things. People didn't like how the 9.0 stuff required you to grind lots of anima. And, if we're just getting these few sets or 9.1, is that enough? Because we're not, we've already seen the armor used for 9.1 in 9. So it's like, is there enough collectibles in 9.1? Like, are these armor sets amazing, or should there have been more armor sets?
Mm-hmm.
So it's just interesting, seeing that, because people are always really excited about armor sets and want more of those. People are excited about systems, but then you always have the casual WoW players that are like, our tier sets back yet? You're like,
Yeah.
what does my class look like?
Mm-hmm.
So I think people will be critical about these sets kind of until tier sets return, because in people's minds they think, oh, tier sets take all this effort. If you're not doing tier sets, then like the other sets have to be amazing. We used to get tier sets plus other themed sets, So I think that's why people hold these sets to a really standard.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. And also because there's with less so with it, when you had the tier sets, a lot of the time every class would be unique, which means there would be more sets going around. Whereas now when it's only connected to, let's say, armor type or covenant, then there's a lot fewer sets, and I think people feel that if we're gonna have fewer sets, then you need to make them better. So I think that's why a lot of people feel like there's a reason for these tier sets to really look good.
Yeah. So on to the mounts. We'll be doing lots of reviews over the next few weeks on Wowhead, but we did our big model dump of everything. And did any stand out to you? Because the ones that stood out to me were the hand mounts, and the mount specials basically play like rock, paper, scissors. So I could see like a lot of bored people in raids being like, oh,
Yeah.
best of 3, we're gonna bet all this gold, and like if your mount wins, then you get the gold. Like they
Can
put up
you
different
do
numbers of fingers.
can you do the rock paper scissors thing with mounts?
Yeah, like you use the mount
Oh
special.
wow!
Let me. I think
Because
I got a
because I saw it with the pets. I didn't realize the mounts do it too.
1 second.
That's super cool.
Oh, I don't know about the pets, but we can show the WoW. Let's see, rock. If you wanted to show the tweet so people know what we're highlighting, that'd be cool.
I will bring the tweet up here. Let's see. Oh, that's amazing. Yeah, because I've been playing rock, paper, scissors with, I forgot what the pet is called, but there's a pet in game where you can play rock, paper, scissors and you
Is
win.
that the crawling claw?
I think it might be.
The archaeology one? Like the creepy hand?
I'm trying to remember. I think it was that one, but I'm not 100% sure, so I don't want to say the wrong thing. But
Right,
maybe somebody in chat knows and they can confirm. But yeah, let me just capture this window so you guys can see what we're talking about with the tweet here. And there we go. So, tweet from Wowhead with a clip. Here we go. Playing. No sound. Oh, this is amazing. Now you have something to do as you're waiting for your raid leader to talk through all the tactics.
Yep.
So I guess when you do the mount special, you just end up doing one of the 3 randomly.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, so that's kind of a fun little detail of the mounts. Another thing that I thought was interesting was that there was another Dragon Hawk, and it was meant to drop from Doomwalker, which appears to be tied to Time Walking, the anniversary event in the future. So it's interesting that this could be going live, the year that Burning Crusade goes live, because it's like the, TBC, Hawk, and he was, a boss related to TBC. So I thought that Dragon Hawk was interesting. And it was like, when you compare it to the Sylvanas one, this one looks like way more pixelated, low resolution. So the Sylvanas one still is pretty special.
We also have an update on what the next Gladiator mount will look like.
Yeah, I think it's similar to the other one, just like with a different
yeah, slightly different color.
Cool. Which, if you watch Devon's stream, aspects of this mount were used on him.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I remember.
Off of it.
Did we highlight the different Covenant mounts?
I think we saw those at BlizzConline.
Yeah, so we've mentioned them before.
Yeah.
But we can show them again in case there's people who've missed them. So there's Covenant-specific mounts that have been found and mentioned before on BlizzConline as well. So you've probably already seen them, but if you haven't, it's cool to know how they look like. We have this one in Kyrian style, and we have this one for Necrolords. And we've got this one for Venthyr, which I have to say is probably my favorite among these. And then we have the Night Fae one here, which looks very, very strange, but kind of cool at the same time.
Yeah. So these are, I believe, all tied to flying. In some way. Maybe you get one free and then you unlock others with other renown. But yeah, they kind of look like cloud serpents, but as a fox.
Yeah.
So
It's very strange.
yeah.
But yeah, a bunch of new little mount models here in there that you can go through them on the Wowhead article on the new mounts as well. You can read what the sources are for the ones that are known, and also click through to see more details of them.
Yep. And of course, there's other ones that are there. There are gross Maltraxus bugs. There are more discs, which everyone's like, oh, it's a mage mount sewer pothole, but they do look really cool. We could highlight the horse because it looks like a much better version of our April 1st mount. How it's all like the legs are all spectral, but it has the kind of um dark armor and spikes everywhere.
Okay, let me find it quick.
Because everyone's like, oh, Wowhead is horse, but it's like a horse with attitude. Blizzard, please add a horse, and yeah, these are pretty cool.
Do you mean the Mossthorn charges reins?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, let me get it here. So this is the horse that we're talking about.
Yeah.
Which does look pretty cool. I still want the Stevon mount. Stevon,
yeah.
make it happen. Oh. And this was the disc that Perk mentioned, which reminds us of the mage class mounts from Legion.
Yeah. So, not everyone liked those, but yeah, we have mage class tower mounts.
Yeah. I actually thought they looked pretty cool, but I understand that some people felt that it was underwhelming compared to some of the other mounts that people had, like the Shaman class mount. I remember was so cool back then.
And then Jaina got a similar.
Yeah, and then we got Jaina, and it doesn't feel as bad anymore. But yeah. Also, this one, I don't know what this is. The one called the Tamed Mauler harness. It looks very strange. Some kind of two-headed dinosaur. Or maybe it's not even two-headed. Maybe it's one head.
It's like it doesn't
maybe
have
there's
a
arms.
head. It's, I don't know. It's like it has like a spike as its head. I don't know. It's weird. Like the yeah, it's like the mount harness. You think it's I don't know. It's straight, but like the mouth doesn't close.
Yeah, this is what radiation does to you. Okay, guys.
Yeah.
This is why you should put your phone away and go to sleep earlier.
Yeah, it's very strange.
It is.
So, yeah, maybe we'll learn more about those creatures in 9.1. So, yeah, why don't we highlight lore stuff and put up a spoiler tag?
Oh, yes, on to lore.
The show is a little late than normal. I'm going to just try to turn an extra light on because it's like really getting very dark here. Okay. So, 1 second. I'll be right back.
No worries. It's lore time, which is always very fun. I love listening to Perk talk about lore. And yeah, Spoiler Inc. Let's see, is the first topic straight away going to be spoiler based? Yeah, it is. So I guess I might as well put the spoiler tag up then. Perfectly in time for Perk to get back as well. And yeah, this section will probably be a lot of spoiler. Because, well, that's what to expect actually from the lore segment of things, Some of it might be speculation, some of it will be straight up spoiler. And after the lore section, we will talk about the few non-PTR related news.
Okay.
So that's what we can expect from today's show in total. All right, spoiler tag is up.
Yep.
Brightpaw is here as well. He's ready for the secret information.
Yeah.
The first topic here, I was saying how I'm looking forward to you, giving us nice summaries of these lore topics, perk. But the first topic here that we have is the continued story of Sire Denathrius, which, as you mentioned earlier, was quickly a favorite among players and audience because Sire Denathrius was a very interesting, charismatic character, and people didn't want him gone. So now apparently we know more.
Yeah. So he was stuck in the sword at the end of Castle Nathria
Mm-hmm.
with, a big beam of light pointing at him, and we were
Yep.
wondering if that would backfire on us because it's very easy to find him.
Yeah.
um and what we data mined was this very interesting blurb from a DB2 called Scene Script Text, which sort of like explains what happens in like little cinematics, and or it's like a narration that goes over a cinematic. And this was, um, thank you for playing Valiant Champion. As Mal'Ganis is defeated, he reveals
Mm-hmm.
his plan. This was all a distraction. While you have been fighting him, the other Natrazim went after the true target, the only master they have ever truly served, Sire Denathrius.
Yep.
So, uh, yeah, really big plot twist. We have a villain come back that was, involved with Arthas years ago. He is still alive. We're fighting him, and then that's just a distraction for us to take our attention away from Sire Denathrius, who then not only escapes, but he's the creator of all the Dreadlords, and then
Yeah.
like, what does that make the Venthyr? Like baby Dreadlords? He created them too, like lesser Dreadlords.
Yeah. And it's very interesting because this is something that we speculated before because you talked about this before how there's so many things in to do with Sidon himself and also the area, how a lot of it does remind of Dreadlords, and now we have the answer to that.
Yeah, and now the link between the jailer and the Dreadlords is super clear if Sire Denathrius was playing the long game, and it explains how the instruments the jailer crafted made their way from the Shadowlands, to the Dreadlords' Burning Legion, and then to the Lich King. Like, they were all working together and infiltrating things.
Mm-hmm.
As we learned from that enemy infiltration book, which seemed to imply the Dreadlords were behind lots of things, and now is confirmed, basically. They were behind a lot of conflicts in the universe, including, you know, maybe they lied to Sargeras about what they saw on other planets, so Sargeras went into, overdrive, trying to destroy everything. Or Lathraxian, the, happy, kind of peppy light Dreadlord, got everyone to put their guard down, but he was an agent too. And there's lots of, they were trying to, have the downfall of the Burning Legion. Like, that was just chaos to, destabilize more things and, bring the Helm of Domination and Frostmourne over. So they've meddled in many different things.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and this is an example of how it's interesting, though, wondering how much is planned out, because the Dreadlords sound like it's set up really well. But when Blizzard said at BlizzCon Line that they didn't plan to have Sire Denathrius have a big role, and then the actor was so charismatic they had him do more.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it's like, well, was he not planned to be the master all along, or was he? But was he dead? But it's interesting how they claim he had this expanded role based on feedback, but now he has like a very important expanded role as
Yeah.
the creator of this race that is causing so much discord.
Yeah, because that brings out more questions. Like, was this part of the story, but he was meant to be dead as it's unveiled, or what was supposed to be the connection otherwise? Because clearly this means that his role is really, really important, and it would seem to me. it would seem to me like this was the plan all along. I actually can't imagine at this point him just being gone then, if this is the true story behind it. Also, this opens up more interesting sides to things, because if this is the case, should the jailer then maybe be worried about what Sinathrius, Dire, oh my god, Sire Denathrius, what he will say when he finds out that the jailer was not interested in helping him get out. I mean, maybe that was the case because the jailer knew that he would be fine, or maybe other reasons. Maybe the Dreadlords would turn against the jailer for not doing something before.
I wonder if he didn't want Sylvanas to be aware of things because, um, you're not sure how much Sylvanas knows about the jailer's involvement with Arthas and her own fate.
Mm-hmm.
And if it's like, oh yes, this guy created the Dreadlords, and remember, Arthas, Strathholm, possessed by hunting down the Dreadlords, like you have to wonder if he was trying to keep that a secret from her. But you have a good point as well. Like, the Dreadlords are really loyal. I mean, to the point where they don't they like there's a rule where they don't kill each other, and maybe that's why Denathrius wouldn't kill Prince Renathal. Like, he, like, oh, this is the first Venthyr I created. He's one of my creation. He's unique. Like, I won't kill him. At the end, you have to wonder if there's some honor code there, even if they're clearly enemies at this point. But yeah, that's a really cold, long game. Like,
Yeah.
millennia of pretending to be a protector of the realm, and stockpiling anima, and working for the enemy, and being charming to the point where the Winter Queen is like, oh yeah, Denathrius, like, ask him for help. And if this is the realm where people's souls are meant to be judged and sent to the maw, if they don't improve or go to another realm, and Denathrius is, corrupt, what does that mean for people's redemption? Like, if it's like, oh, it's an anima battery, they're never going to be redeemed, they're just going to, sit here forever and generate anima, so the jailer is happy, or do they send souls to the maw they think would be good allies for the jailer, regardless if they're trying to redeem themselves? So it sort of puts the whole cycle of death into question. And now it's like,
Yeah.
well, we thought this realm was like a very important part of the cycle of death, but it's run by someone who was against us all along. So, like, does that make the whole thing a sham?
Yeah.
So,
Oh, look at
yeah,
Bright Paw. I just
I
noticed
know.
him. He's like, oh, this is really comfy. The story
Yeah, he's
time.
like, he's like, this
Very
is such a
cozy.
relaxing story.
Yeah. No, I'm pretty happy
But
about this development of Denathria's story.
yeah, it's also, I mean, we still don't know lots of parts.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we know that the jailer is trying to collect like the special essence from each realm, and with Bastion they stabbed it and then they took it away. You don't know if the jailer is willingly going to give the Seal of Revendreth. Uh, we don't know if Denathrius will give it willingly to the jailer, or if the jailer planned on ignoring Denathrius and
Mm-hmm.
then realized he needed this, so he freed him. Like, we don't know if Denathrius is sort of his own, rogue third party
Mm-hmm.
agent, similar to Ashara, where she was against us, but then she wanted to, double cross Nazoth as well, and eventually helped us, but is still not really friends with us. So
Mm-hmm.
you have to wonder what's going to happen to Denathrius. It's not clear if who they're loyal to. It's also interesting because the Dreadlords and Nathrazim are loyal to their master, who is Denathrius.
Mm-hmm.
They are not loyal to the jailer. So if there was ever a falling out with the jailer and Sire Denathrius, they're gonna side with the guy who made them.
Yeah, of course. Mm-hmm.
So yeah, but always fun to see him back. He's just like a very fun, charismatic character, kind of like Ashara. I mean, he's even got the wine glass down pat.
Yeah.
So
Very fancy
so
characters.
yeah. So we'll probably have more details on him later as we get to
Mm-hmm.
play through the actual quest line.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but for now, we could highlight another interesting
Oh.
character of
Mm-hmm.
Revendreth who is
Another
returning.
anticipated character, especially since the cinematic, Garrosh Hellscream. He is now mentioned, and we will see him in part of the Sanctum of Domination fights.
Yeah, so there is a boss fight called Soul Render Dorm Dormazine.
Yeah,
These names.
yeah. Dormazine,
And
Dormazine. Yeah.
Brightpaw does not like Garrod much. He's attacking me.
Aw.
Brightpaw, go back to sleep. And it seems based on the abilities that in the raid, Garrosh is still being used as some sort of anima battery to power up this boss and his minions. And we're trying to keep the minions away from Garrosh so they don't get empowered and deal more damage to us. And there's fun abilities like Hell Scream, pushed to the edge of annihilation. Garrosh bellows a roar, dealing damage to players every second. Loktar Ogar. It's just, he still has his personality even in the fight.
Yep.
Or it's like more sworn agonizers allowed to reach Garrosh become empowered with defiance. The River of Souls wanes on the life force of nearby players, reducing damage and health done by 100%. Defiance, Garrosh's anima overwhelms the caster with Defiance, becoming immune to all forms of crowd control and increasing all damage done by 200%. So we're going to put Brightpaw down. And yeah, just we're going to look at the fight. And it definitely seems that they're trying to use Garrosh to empower themselves. So I wonder if we're going to save him at the end. Or it's going to be like an Ashara where we save her and then she runs off. Um, the boss name has a very interesting line, which is Soul Render is tasked to extract potent anima stores from hellaciously brutish captives of Torghast to serve as fuel for the jailer's armies. Step inside the vessel of torment as he goes to work on Garrosh Hellscream, former war chief of the True Iron Horde. So that's interesting because war chief of the True Iron Horde, it's like was that really his? I'm not sure if that was ever his title. Like he was war chief of the Horde, and
Mm-hmm.
then his alternate father was the war chief of the Iron Horde. So it's like, did they like mash stuff up together, being like, oh, he created the Iron Horde symbolically? It's interesting. But yeah, so I wonder if we save him and then maybe he'll play a role in a future patch when we deal with like Thrall and Draka and like Thrall meeting his family. Or if he won't
Oh, I
survive
really
the
want to
fight.
see a Thrall meeting family.
Yeah, and like, Thrall partially went into his depression and guilt because Thrall appointed Garrosh war chief
Mm-hmm.
and, you know, was, obviously that didn't go well and Thrall and Garrosh had to have that fight in alternate Draenor where, Thrall won, but, felt he didn't play fairly and like got out of touch with the elements. So in a sense, like, Garrosh died. Garrosh did a lot of horrible things, but Thrall was the one that had the killing blow to send Garrosh to the Shadowlands, where he now has this horrible fate.
Mm-hmm.
So it would be interesting to get some closure on that story for Thrall, since like that's really been haunting him for the last few years. And I think, in this Bellular interview, the Blizzard was saying that, we want to get payoff for Garrosh's appearance in the Afterlives trailer.
Mm-hmm.
And, we'll see fitting events that will transpire. And I feel like that has to be more than just a raid that not everyone's going to fight. Or like, oh, like off in this corner, Garrosh is like, empowering minions that we're CCing or, something like that.
Yeah, because
So
then it's like a small little side role instead of being in the center of things. And it does feel like his story won't be complete without that interaction with Thrall. So I do hope that more will happen after this does.
yeah, like Blizzard really seems to be into offering like big payoff moments, and we had a lot with like Jaina and her mother documenting their fallout and reconciliation. So I feel like we would need something with Garrosh and Thrall.
And we haven't seen Garrosh for so long, and if we're finally gonna see him and he's just a little side part of a boss, like that would be a waste, a missed opportunity.
Yeah.
And Thrall was also gone for some time, and this is like the perfect time to tie those together.
Yeah. So, for our final bit of spoiler stuff,
final bit of lore.
We are back to the Primus's identity, which a lot of people assume this, but it's good to have confirmation. Well, as much as we can get. But based on the broadcast text data mining, it seems like the Primus is the rune carver. Surprise!
Surprise! Maybe for some.
And yeah, and it seems like based on what we can piece together, the jailer is trying to get everyone's sigil, and we have the Maltraxus one, but it's broken, and we want to like empower it or use it for ourselves, and we're like, oh, the rune carver can fix it. But when we give it to the rune carver, he's like, transforms into the Primus.
Why
and then
is
he's
that?
like back to his old self. Yeah. And we're like, oh wow, like we didn't expect this.
Yeah.
And then the broadcast text is unclear, but it seems like the jailer's forces end up getting the prized item, but they don't recapture the Primus, who is back to his old self and is like, oh, I've returned to the Shadowlands in its twilight hour. I'm gonna, rally the troops. So, it seems like we may have rescued the Primus for good, and now he's back on our side. So even though we're not doing a good job protecting these special items, we've gained this master tactician.
A new ally.
And yeah, I mean, everyone sort of assumed they were related because, Primus was really good at weapons and armor, and the rune carver does the legendaries.
So it made sense.
Like, what's gonna happen to legendaries in a future patch?
Yeah.
Like, oh, you're freed, but please keep crafting these
yeah, keep doing this
us.
work for us. I mean, now it's as an ally, right?
Yeah, I guess they could be like, oh, 9-2 new legendary Primus's, found reinforcements for us to become even more powerful. He'll, craft super legendaries for us. Like, you could explain it with the lore, I guess. It's just funny how it's gonna be like, oh, the rune carver is gonna look different in 9-2. But yeah, it's interesting. It does seem like we don't do a good job protecting the special items against the jailer, and he gets them from us in different ways. It's not all the same as like Anduin going up and stabbing someone. But I do think that if we get the Primus back, that does seem like a pretty solid win for us. So
yeah,
it's
a great ally to have in these times.
Yeah, are you surprised by this or not? That his true identity.
So like my point of view is based on what other people have kind of like gathered and said, so it was kind of an expectation based on that. Since I'm not like the lore pro myself, I didn't have like a strong reason to believe against it. So it was like I can say that I was not surprised, but it was based on other people's like research of putting it together. How did you feel about it?
So it felt like they were setting up a lot of textual clues for it to make sense. And then there's also like meta details, like I think the voice actor was the same. But personality wise they seemed really similar, and a lot of the like Primus messages in Maltraxus hinted at the rune carver, so it wasn't too much of a surprise, but it kind of ties into what we were talking about with patches and like the stories kind of being wrapped up, that Shadowlands, it's like a brand new environment. You have to do a lot of like world building to introduce the characters, and if we're gonna have jailer versus arbiter and like Primus identity revealed in this patch, it's like what big mysteries
yeah, you feel like all mysteries
left.
are unveiled already.
Yeah, so you have to wonder what's in store. It's like, will Primus do some super cool thing in a later Shadowlands patch? Like, Primus gets his revenge. We'll learn in a future patch how he was captured. But right now it seems like a lot of the story moments from launch are sort of resolving in 9.1.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but yeah, I mean, I guess 9.2 could be like, oh, the jailer's forces broke in and stole everything, and now we'll try to rebuild. Like I think in the Ardenweald one, even like the seeds are stolen, so it's like, oh no, what happened to Vol'jin? Like, is he stolen by the jailer? Is he back? Um,
Yeah.
so I don't know. Maybe there'll be like a whole like regrouping patch, and then like going off to another continent to finally end things. You don't know.
Another thing with the
Um,
Primus being a rune carver, wasn't there some kind of one of some of the theories around it was talking about the statue and like comparing the number of fingers and things like that?
yeah. I mean, I think that's like a good point, but you have to wonder if like someone didn't get like an art memo, and then like it would have been really obvious if it's like, oh, we've data mined a model change, like the Primus, the rune carver, the Primus now has the same number of fingers. Like they would have made it super obvious.
Yeah.
Uh, Being like, oh, why did they change this one finger to better line up? So yeah, I'm not sure. I mean, I think that that is a good point how they did have a different number of fingers,
Mm-hmm.
but maybe it was an accident, and then it would have been too much attention if they had updated it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but yeah, I think it's good also to finally have like a character that people can like rally behind in Maltraxus, because there's like so many minor ones, and like houses are fighting all the time,
Oh
and
yeah.
like
Mm-hmm.
characters keep dying, so it's nice to be like, okay, like this is the ruler, and like
Yeah.
they're in charge, and
Yeah.
they're flawed, but positive, as opposed to, well, like, is Draka in charge? Is like Vosh in charge? Like who even knows what's going on with this zone?
Yeah.
Um, so I think it's good they have a charismatic leader, as it can be kind of confusing to understand.
Mm-hmm. And I think
um,
that kind of
yeah.
wraps up the story and lore things.
Yeah, so but we have a few quick notes on non PTR news, but just to wrap it up, like, what do you think of all the 9.1 are like? Does this seem like enough content following the large gap?
We can remove
Do you
spoiler tag
think,
for this, right?
oh yeah, this is just like, so we discussed a
Yes.
bunch of 9.1 stuff. Like,
So
is it good? Do you
TLDR.
think
Mm-hmm.
more? Is there a 9.3? If you played Shadowlands for a few months and got bored, like, does this sound hype enough to get you to return? Like, how does all this look?
Yeah, I think it's really interesting because so I think Shadowlands started off like really, really strong with a lot of different
Yeah.
things to do, a lot of things to unlock, a lot of things that unfolded with time and campaign being progressed, and everything felt really nice until then we reached the end. Except it
Yeah.
wasn't the end of the patch,
Right.
so we're kind of like stuck in the end. It's like the end video, the end screen is just on repeat, and nothing new is happening, and I think sadly that length of time is what has caused a lot of people to get bored of the game, understandably, quit the game. There's not much to do. A lot of the raiders have reached their goals of raiding, either by completing everything or by getting far enough to be content with what they've
Hmm.
achieved. Most people are as geared as they would wish to be at this point, especially PvPers too. And so the game is kind of at a stalemate, and it's worrying that the patch is this long in comparison to previous expansions, especially like if you compare it to Legion, for example, um, that it feels like, are we going to then be punished by having fewer patches this expansion? Because usually the expansion cycles go kind of the expansions usually last a certain amount of time, and if these patches are really really long, does that mean we're only getting a 9.2 and then the expansion is over? Little things like you mentioning a lot of the mysteries being unfolded this early kind of points towards that too. So it does feel a little bit worrying for the overall health of the whole expansion. Um, but yeah, it's hard to say. Honestly, I'm not sure if there's
Yeah.
enough for people to be happy and to come back for. It's also a little bit worrying because it does feel like there's a few new systems being added, a few new things being tested, which we don't want that mid expansion. But it's for now, I think a lot of it does sound good in theory. I'm still a little bit concerned about the Shard of Domination. That's what it was called, right?
Yep. The raid
The raid
gem.
gearing system. Um, but it's yeah, it remains to be seen what will go on. 9.1 PTR did come out really late, so we can't really expect the patch to be done anytime soon. So we are still looking at a quite long patch. So I don't think
Yeah. It also.
like I don't
Yeah.
think the
It's also
PTR
like.
being out is enough for people to come back. And yeah, sorry. Now
Yeah.
your turn.
Yeah, so I mean, I'm also wondering like when would a 9.2 come out? Like, you mean
Mm-hmm.
if it takes so long to make a 9.1, it's like, is it 9.2 in 2022? Like it,
Yeah.
and then it's like, whoa, like that's you know super super late. So
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the PTR has only been up for a week. Um, I think that people, BlizzConline, they were really hype about things like Covenant mounts and flying. I hope people always like armor sets, even though it sounds stupid. It's like the people want to go get their cool armor set and like look pretty. So hopefully that's enough to bring them back. I also think like maybe the idea of fighting Sylvanas could be something to bring it back, but I
That's
think
very
that
true.
like WoW story, it's like it's so fragmented and spread out that you don't want people to feel like, okay, I watched like the Data Mine Sylvanas cinematic on YouTube and like she disappears in a puff of smoke like Ashara. Like you want there to be some like payoff in game that you want to see as opposed to it being like always spread out like, oh, here's another twist. So I don't know, I feel like you need like the systems, you need to improve the systems to appeal to the hardcore players, but then if you're hardcore, you're probably still playing somewhat like if you care about your rankings. But if you're someone that quit, I don't think knowing that like PvP gear is better in PvP is enough to bring you back. I think you need big picture things like here's a new zone and like weird stuff you can collect and do, like A2 for example had Najatar and Mechagon. Like I think you need something like that to bring casual people back, especially if they're like off doing Final Fantasy or other games.
PoE.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
yeah, I think they need to like really nail the marketing for this. And I'd also like to see more of Korthia because that seems to be like the replayable content for casuals. um Obviously, the class balance and the raid gear for raid and PvP for PvP is very important, but for casual people, if you're like, oh well, there's this raid gem and official Raider IO score and PvP weapons change eye level, like that's not flashy enough to bring people back. So I think that um if they emphasize Sylvanas more, or you get more cinematics like Anduin, or even stupid stuff like, oh, this mount does rock paper scissors, people just want to feel like they're getting cool stuff and it's immersive. Like if the Thrall storyline was in the patch, I think that would actually get a lot of people to play because people really care about Thrall. um so like you need some like really punchy big picture things, and I
Mm-hmm.
think they really need to nail the marketing because online was just like, here's a PowerPoint, like we have nothing to show you on what this actually looks
Yeah,
like, or it's
nothing to
like,
test, sorry.
or like the Korthia picture was like, oh look, it's the maw and it's really ugly, but we put this pretty pastel unicorn in the front, so at first glance you think the zone has pastel things. Like the
Yeah.
zone, like if you just saw the raid or the Korthia screenshot, you'd be like, oh, well, this is just Torghast again. Like, you
Yeah.
need something visually appealing to grab people in and, get the flashy armor sets appeal to the casual. So, um, and, they need to do more marketing, more interviews, more streamer, Q&As. Again, what they were doing in the alpha. I think that's important, especially as we slowly move out of a lockdown phase and people, even gamers are finally like, oh yeah, I want to actually go outside for a change and
Yeah, I mean
see something else.
a lot more people are getting vaccinated as well, so the the pressure on expectations is definitely getting high again. So I think, yeah, for Blizzard, it would be in their best interest right now to have those interviews and, feel a bit more in touch with the players. I think it's
Yeah,
extremely
especially
important
if
right
it's
now.
like, oh, in a few months I could finally be going outside and see family again or grinding my official
Mm-hmm.
Blizzard IO score. It's like,
Yep.
yeah,
I think
you
flying
don't
mount
want
is
the
also a
game to
nice
feel like a
positive.
chore.
Yeah,
The
for
flying
sure.
mount's really positive, especially because it's so easy.
Yeah, I think
Um,
they needed to do that because anyone who quit, if
that's a
they
good
come
hook,
back
yeah.
and have to find out I'll fly in 2 months, they'll
No,
just go
yeah.
back to quitting again. But if they
Yeah.
can fly, it will make going through the different zones feel a lot less daunting. Also because flying or getting around in Shadowlands in general is really annoying because of the all the zones. Like you always have to go
Mm,
through Ouroboros, and like if you're in Revendreth and you want to get to Maltraxus and then you want to get to Ardenweald, having to constantly like kind of like go back and forth in between
right.
this middle hub is really annoying. So at least if you can fly when you're in the zone, there's like a little bit of a trade-off and not so bad, because you're still gonna have to fly through Ouroboros, sadly. But I think just having these restrictions made Blizzard realize like I don't think people will be happy if they have to work through like 2 months of content to unlock flying, only then to realize the flying is also restricted. We should probably just give them flying
Yeah.
straight away.
I think that this would be interesting, although I mean, I don't know if the higher ups would like it. If they like released a post mortem on Shadowlands and had some honesty, or tried to explain in more detail why things take longer with COVID, because I'm sure a lot of people are, curious why stuff is really delayed, or I think it just would be interesting to pull the curtain back and to understand that a bit better. Um, like, is it working from home? Is it because systems take longer? I mean, at BlizzCon Line, it seemed like the art and a lot of stuff was far along, but the systems they couldn't show yet. So it's like, well, why do systems take longer with COVID as opposed to art? Like, I think it just would be nice to hear some of those things, and just it makes it seem like authentic and transparent, as opposed to being like epic things coming soon, TM.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, I don't know if Blizzard PR could do that, but I think that um I don't know. I think just being honest about why there are delays could be
I
interesting.
think people would really
Um,
appreciate that.
yeah, I mean, they could do it with like a streamer Q&A as well.
Mm-hmm.
The streamer wouldn't be like mean, but if the streamer was asking straight questions like, "Hey, you made it seem like this was coming along and then it was delayed," like, you know, what happened? Or you
Yeah.
said you weren't adding systems, but then you added systems with borrowed
Mm-hmm.
power. Like, I think it would be good to just voice some of these community concerns, because uh, everyone likes to think they could design games, but we're not game developers, so it would be good to have some of the not intuitive parts of the industry explained.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Indeed.
but yeah, why don't we highlight quickly some non PTR news and just general reminders? Did you want to
Mm-hmm.
do the subs now or after all the news? I
Let's do it
very
after.
bottom. We're on like page 4 of the stuff.
Yeah, let's finish up the news. I think that would
Okay,
make it fitting. So we
yeah, let's
have
do that.
two pieces of non PTR news. The first one up is the slime serpent has been discovered as the latest secret in the game. And
Yeah.
this was a really interesting one because, unlike the previous secrets where people had to, combine forces of many, many brains together, this one was kind of found by accident, which is pretty funny. Um, this slime serpent has was found by a hunter who does a lot of solo content, and what it seems to have come down to is simply soloing two of the bosses in the dungeon Plaguefall on heroic or mythic difficulty, and then this NPC or the serpent itself is spawned, and what you do is go to it and you pet it, and then you learn the mount. It's really cool that it was a secret which was accidentally solved in a way. Very
Yeah, so like
random.
I think that it's funny, but I'm also not sure if I would call it a secret because I think the community like associated secrets and Blizzard hyped it up how secrets were like community group like puzzles like solved together and like data
That's
mining
true.
shouldn't be
Mm-hmm.
needed.
Mm-hmm.
So I think some people because it's so early on in the expansion and not everyone can solo heroic plaguefall on every class. I think a lot of people were disappointed to discover that the secret was, well, you have to like, you know, be on a tank or like a hunter that's, more overpowered at soloing at this point. And, it's just a solo. Like I think people like the hype of discovering clues one by one and, spreadsheets of looking how to do things and trying different puzzles and working together. Because yeah, while a lot of people have alts and you can log on an alt that's maybe the right class, it feels like this was more like a I don't know, like a mini secret or like a fun soloing challenge. I'm not sure, as opposed to like the hive mind getting that mount. This is like very different in
Oh yeah.
scope, and a lot of
Mm-hmm.
collectors were kind of like they were anticipating something else and they were just sort of you know bummed out how this turned out how a lot of specs couldn't get it. Maybe if they added this in like 9.3 when like everyone like really outgeared Plaguefall, but right now it just felt like, oh, feels bad, man, if you're not the right spec.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Definitely, I can see how a lot of people would be disappointed. I had to play on my alt as well,
Yeah.
since I main a warlock. Apparently, it might be doable as a demo warlock, but that's not a spec that I play. And affliction and destruction would be pretty rough with the damage, since the pet is not able to keep aggro properly. And I tried on my paladin, and I played. I had to respec prot for the first time, so that was interesting. I spent at least 3 attempts just wiping because I didn't know my binds. But
Yeah.
after a few runs, I started understanding my binds and what I'm supposed to click, and then I managed to do it. So Paladin was the way to go for me. Maybe for
Yeah.
a lot of other people out there too. If you are concerned about it being too difficult and spending too much time in there, you could wait until the next patch, because at that point you'd have better gear and be able to manage the amount of damage and surviving, I suppose. Yeah, because you need the
Yeah.
damage to get the ads down, otherwise you get overwhelmed on the third boss.
Hmm.
And you also kind of need some survivability to be able to tank the damage that might come from a lot of different directions. So yeah, it was fun though, but I can definitely see how it feels unfair for a lot of
It
classes
was a
out
little
there.
like fake advertising. Like if this was like, oh, it's a challenge. I feel like challenge is better than secret because everyone's like, oh, like
Mm-hmm.
when I got the Riddler, like I went to Westfall and then I found the page here and there, and this was more like, oh, I need to solo something on the right class.
Mm-hmm.
um, but yeah, so our sort of final bit of big news before some reminders is the Warcraft movie Twitter just sort of got active out of nowhere and was like, here's a bunch of deleted scenes.
Yeah.
Which was interesting because like there wasn't meant to be the possibility for a trilogy. That's sort of long dead. Duncan Jones, the director, said he didn't get to have his version of the movie, which is meant to be a lot longer. And these aren't all the deleted scenes, but you can see in it that a lot of the scenes that were cut were like a lot of character building
Mm-hmm.
scenes that I think added some like real feelings, emotions to characters. They weren't, cartoon characters. It was interesting interactions. But it's like, why is this coming out now? Is Blizzard doing a deal with like Netflix or something with Arthas, and it's like, is the legendary contract over? So they just released the extra scenes. Is something happening with the movie again? You don't know, but it was very interesting to suddenly have like 15 minutes of deleted scenes.
Yeah.
pop up, and it makes me want to see the full version with the extra 45 minutes.
Mm-hmm. And is this a hint for us getting a sequel, perhaps, or a Netflix show, or something else?
Yeah, I mean, I think it shows that like the actual scenes in the movie were very good, and if they just had the right marketing and the right pacing, it would have gone over much better. I
Mm-hmm.
don't know if we wanted to show one of the scenes where Chris Metzen is a perfume vendor, but yeah, they're just like very good world building scenes, and just they make the characters more appealing and makes you care about them.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, it's definitely worth checking out, even if we can't look at all of them now here on the
Yeah.
show. So it's on the Warcraft Movie Twitter account, and we can link the article on it here as well in the chat. Definitely worth checking out all of them to get a feel for, what could have been in the movie. And to
Yeah.
be hyped for a potential, sequel. Who knows? Probably not, but, one can only wish. But yeah, with that, should we
Yeah.
wrap up
Oh
the
yeah, sorry.
news
I thought
then?
I thought you were showing the scenes, so I was like zoning out. But no, we can yeah, definitely check out the
Oh,
15 minutes, and
mm-hmm,
we can just do a few quick reminders
mm-hmm.
before we wrap it up. So
We can play.
Wowhead
We can play
Soulblade.
one of the scenes. Should we do that?
Oh no, it's yeah, we can do the perfume one at like 8. I just thought that was interesting how there's a Chris Metzen scene and like they just deleted him from the movie. Like I thought that was, I don't know, it feels like a faux pas to just like,
Yes. Yeah,
delete
yeah, yeah.
like a very important person behind Warcraft
Mm-hmm.
lore from, everything. So
Okay, let's try this. I hope that the timestamp is correct. Let's take a look.
yeah, it's not, no worries.
Yeah, it wasn't, but I'll find it. Here we go. Almost there. Here we go. The city prepares for war.
A room in my shop for your stuff.
If you can swing a sword, to this tent. If you can ride a horse, to that tent.
There you are. Tell me, what do you know of the Orc Warlock's magic?
What are they doing?
They're getting ready for war. Corona, I need your help. What? What's so funny?
How could you not be ready for war?
Anything you want, Lev. Just make it fast. 5 more minutes and I'm out of here.
If my man's to go to war, he'll leave on a good night's loving.
You're a good woman.
Well, some of us are ready.
You and Lothar? A man and a boy?
2 men. And there are many others. Now look at this. Have you heard of Aladai?
No.
Look.
You drew this?
Yes. You've got it the wrong way.
No. We came out of the ground. You drew our arrival in the Black Morass. How would you know what that looked like?
Oh, I was muted.
Yeah.
Yeah, and there
Oh.
it was.
Yeah.
Yeah, we could see Chris Metzen in there, which is a cool little detail and very sad that it was not part of the movie itself. I see a question in the chat. What new movie? Question mark. No, so these are deleted scenes that the Warcraft movie Twitter account has tweeted now randomly out of nowhere, years and years later, with scenes that were never included in the official launch or release of the movie.
Yeah, I thought it was also just good to I felt like the interaction between Garona and Khadgar interesting because they seem to be friends in other scenes,
Mm-hmm.
and it's nice to see them interacting in the town square. It just adds world building. Like there were so many shots of Stormwind from up above, or like the throne room, but it was nice to actually see the civilians, see how Garona feels like kind of out of place, seeing how like the be heroes or still, just like day-to-day people in the marketplace. And there's a lot of details and fun costumes that get cut when you just constantly are seeing battle scenes all the time. So
Yep.
I just think having nice scenes like this are just fun additions. Like they pace things out better, having quiet moments that are still like really fun to see as a player. And they make Stormwind like feel alive in a way that just seeing, like throne rooms or military shots may not do. It gives it like a more of a personality.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe if Blizzard ever does like a Netflix series again or something else, hopefully they will have, have learned from this and will have more artistic vision to not, just have something that flows better and also has better marketing.
Mm-hmm. And that was one clip out of a few clips that were tweeted out. So if you want to check it out, you definitely should.
Yeah. And just some quick rapid fire things as we wrap it up because the show's gone on super long. Just some quick reminders. When we keep talking about 9.1 stuff, our Soulbind calculator is updated for 9.1 now, and writer opinions on every class change because we found that people like forget what happens a few days into the PTR, so we thought if we highlighted them again, but with like context explaining them, that way if you didn't see it first time around, you were learning something new, and if you saw it first time around, you are getting more context on it. So definitely check out the 9.1 PTR site if you want to see like the new versions of everything. Daisy the Sloth, like the fundraising really slowed down, but now she is back on track. She's less than 100,000 left for that to be unlocked, and you can donate until the 26th, I think. So donate away. And there's a new cool art print and Murloc onesie on the Blizzard shop, and the art print is the Leaders of the Covenants. It's like a really cool painting that I think we saw teased at BlizzConline. Does feature Margrave Crexus, so dude's just like everywhere, even though he's dead in game. And if you use the code linked in the Wowhead article, we get a small percentage of the money. I think that's about it. Really appreciate you guys staying with us for the super long show, and also the delay. But we really wanted to like do a good job getting all the images and information ready.
Indeed. And whenever there is a PTR, especially these major patches, it's always a bit of a longer show as we go through as much as possible. Also, there were more things that came with the 9.1, but we wanted to focus on the things that we thought were the most interesting. Otherwise, we'd be sitting here for another 3 hours.
Yeah.
I see people commenting about sound. Apparently, maybe my microphone or something made some weird sound. I apologize if that's the case. But yeah, thank you guys very, very much for watching our little summary, only a few hours, of the 9.1. Also want to give a quick shout out to the people who subscribed during the show. We had Lincoln82 with a very long 40-month resub. Thank you very, very much, Lincoln. Aegis also following that up with 39 months. Thank you very much, Aegis. We got Noma coming up with 9 months resub. Taylor with 13 months resub. Sass with 58 months resub. Sass, good to see you here in the chat too. And 58 months. Wow.
Wow, that's such a big but arbitrary number.
Yeah, it's so long. And then we've got Macken also coming in with 20 months resub. Thank you very much for supporting Wowhead.
Yeah. So, I think that's about it.
Listen, ladies.
I can pick Brightpaw up if he wants to say goodbye. So let
Good
me
luck.
pick him up if he wants to say goodbye. Brightpaw! Baby Brightpaw!
Okay, so if we're lucky, Brightpaw will come and join us. If we're unlucky, he won't. He, decides when he wants to come. Unlike dogs, cats are your master, and with dogs, you are their master. That's how things goes. He's like, Mom, do I have to? I want Luna to join us. Oh, she's been sleeping here the entire show. I showed her at the beginning of the show, and she's still there. She has moved, but still in the same place. Brightpaw is here. Awesome.
Yep.
All right. Is it high five time?
I think so.
Yeah. Is Mommy allowed to do a high five, Brightpaw? Nice.
Okay, I think we're good.
You can go for it.
All right. 3, 2, 1.
For another great show covering 9.1 PTR.
Brightpaw's clapping.
Oh, nice. Thank you guys so much again for watching this late night. Well, for some of you guys, it's not night. For me, it's night, almost 2 a.m. actually. For the rest of you guys, it's like late afternoon, maybe evening. We'll be back again next week, most likely, keeping you guys updated on Twitter. So don't forget to follow all the Twitter accounts. Here we got twitter.com. For Wowhead, for example, this show is always retweeted on that Twitter. You can also follow our personal accounts where we also tweet about it every single time we do a show. So mine, twitter.com/Anafusia. Then we've got Perk with twitter.com/Perculia. Also, if you scroll down, there's a little bar there with the little Twitter icons and our names, including Stevan, actually, who is in charge of the data mining.
Some streaming this week.
Yeah, so you may want to follow him too.
He's like,
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
To keep up with when the data mining streams are happening, you may want to follow him too. And of course, follow the channel here as well to be notified whenever the channel goes live. That's what I would recommend. Yeah, well, with that said, we'll see you guys next time, and thank you again.
Yep. See you guys next week. Bye.
Bye-bye.